Okay, good morning. We're here on the 18th of December, sorry. Bit rushed, bit late as well. But we will be joining the London Assembly for Mayor's Question Time. Please like, subscribe and give us a comment. The chat will be running. I will catch up with you in a bit. Thank you.
Can I welcome everyone to this meeting? The London Assembly is a voice of London, composed of 25 members elected at the same time as the Mayor in order to hold him to account, scrutinise his policies and investigate matters of importance to Londoners. Can I welcome members, officers and the public here in the gallery and watching on the webcast? This is Mayor's Question Time, a meeting of the Assembly, which means that all members have been invited to attend and ask questions of the Mayor. In case of emergency and any need to exit the building, guests are seated in the public gallery should follow security staff and Assembly members should follow the meeting clerk. Members are reminded that any electronic devices should not be placed in front of the microphone, which must be turned on to speak and turned off once finished. Can I now ask the clerk to confirm any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies today on behalf of Assembly Member Ahmad and Assembly Member Mahfouz.
Okay, let's take a moment before we begin today to recognise the awful incident that happened over the weekend at Bondi Beach in Australia. I know I speak for all Assembly members when I say our thoughts are with those affected by the attack, and we stand in solidarity with the Jewish community in Australia and across the world. If we could just stand briefly if we're able to. Thank you. Since we last met for the London Assembly plenary earlier this month, the Planning and Regeneration Committee met to examine whether new developments reflect what Londoners want from the city-built environment. The Transport Committee questioned guests about the increasingly long bus journey times and the TfL measures to reverse this. The Budget and Performance Committee met to scrutinise and draft the 2026/27 budget for MOPAC. The committee also wrote to the Mayor regarding the draft 2026/27 London Fire Commissioners budget. The Economy and Culture and Skills Committee questioned guests about the experiences and challenges of the unpaid carers in London, and the Police and Crime Committee summons the Mayor to attend a meeting of the committee to ask questions on why it has not had the opportunity to comment on the draft Met Estate Strategy as part of the committee's oversight and scrutiny role. This week we held confirmatory hearings to assess the Mayor's proposed appointment of Keith Morgan CBE as Chair of the London Legacy Development Corporation. The committee agreed to recommend the appointment. The audit panel examined audit reports including Film in London. The Budget and Performance Committee took a close look at the Transport of London's 26/27 budget. The Transport Committee held an extraordinary meeting with COMO UK, TfL and the Deputy Mayor to discuss the demise of Zipcar. The Police and Crime Committee continued its investigation into violence against women and girls and hate crime on public transport and held a question-answer session with the Deputy Mayor on the Angelini inquiry, Part 2, and the Met's police custody. And not finally, I've got a few more bits. You can take a big breath. The Housing Committee investigated social housing allocations. On Monday, I attended what I regard as a very significant event in terms of the Mayor's Christmas Carols concert And I think it was significant in terms of the challenges facing here in London and across the world in different locations, and the messages. Mayor, I wish to congratulate on the messages and the tone of the service, which was, it had something for everyone, those of faith and those not of faith, in coming together in a unified way. So can I thank you for that? And can we thank our staff, both in the stakeholders and the events team, for an excellent event that they goes into. A lot of hard work goes in behind the scenes, and they should be congratulated and thanked for their work in producing this concert. I know the Assembly will join me in congratulating the former London Fire Commissioner Andy Rowe, who's been appointed to the House of Lords. And I'm just looking to the gallery.
The school's here.
The school is here. I'm hoping the sixth form politics students of Thomas Tullis School in the Royal Borough of Greenwich, which is in my constituency, so I'll even smile more towards you, being the politician that I am. Can we welcome you here today? Okay, so let's now crack... Oh, sorry, Assembly Member Bath.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I think there's an omission from your procedure note, and I think it's important that the Assembly should note your demotion to the House of Lords. May I call you Lord Len? You have been a giant of London, the London political scene since you first got elected to Greenwich Council in 1990. Since then, you have valued London's democracy. It puts us all to shame. And whilst we all know there's little you and I agree on politically, what we do agree on is that the voice of London should be heard, and that this institution is extraordinarily important to holding power to account. And I just wanted to say that I think the Assembly would all agree that, Lord Len, you deserve this, and you have our most sincere congratulations.
Assembly Member Hall.
Thanks. Well, I can't not say something then. All of you know I love Len. And why do I love him? Because he's old Labour. It's true. He's not part of the woke upper class Islington scene. You say it as it is, Len, and that's what I like. You're a street fighter. I like that. This woke nonsense isn't anywhere near you, thank God. So I know you'll do well in the House of Lords. I know you will ruffle some feathers, and I'll be very disappointed in you if you don't. But everything Andrew said is true. You are very well respected in all the parties. I'm glad we won't be missing you until the end of this term, because that would be awful if you left. You'll do very well, and we're very proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Assembly Member McCartney, Chair.
Assembly Member McCartney.
Thank you. Well, I've had the pleasure of knowing you for about 25 years now, and this honour is extremely well deserved. The Labour Group is absolutely delighted with your recognition. You've served London and your constituents for many years, and you've never lost sight of the reason why we are here, and that's to make lives better for the people that we serve. You've guided our group through a number of challenges, and also you've guided the GLA since its inception, being the longest serving member here. And of course, we also know you in another guise as a fixture of the London Regional Labour Party, where you've served with distinction, because you know, as we know, that people are better off when Labour is in charge. But I think I can speak on behalf of everybody here that we know that all parties in this body recognise your contribution to this body, and the phrase that other parties often ask me when we have challenges is, what does Len think? And I think that's a testament to how, in the high regard that you're thought of. You are greatly respected, and we are absolutely delighted for you.
Thank you.
Assembly Member Russell, Chair.
Oh, Assembly Member Russell.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've known Len now for almost a decade, and I have come to really appreciate Len's long experience of local government and your absolute commitment to this institution, the Assembly, and making sure that the decisions that get made are in the best interests of the Assembly, and putting, you know, in those group leaders meetings, we all put party politics aside and we work together for the good of the Assembly. And I think, Len, your leadership on that has been really extraordinary, and you have taken us through complex, difficult times of moving buildings, kind of, you know, and through the pandemic, you know, that your role on that group leaders group has been really, really important. And I know lots of us don't actually get to see that, but those of us that do see it really, really appreciate it. I think you're very straightforward. You're always straight talking. You take the Assembly incredibly seriously. I even think you might be a tiny bit woke, and I very much look forward to seeing you work in the House of Lords. Congratulations, Len.
Assembly Member Bakari.
Lord Len, we all love you. I mean, it's clear that from everyone's comments already, you are somebody who is so well respected. And as a relative newbie compared to some people here, when I became group leader, it was, you know, a challenge for me coming in, not really knowing how all of the group leaders were going to work. And what I found is the collaboration, the mutual respect, and also the admiration that we all have for each other. And that comes from leadership, from yourself, Len. Len, you are a legend. And when we say that we are the voice of London, Len, you truly are the voice of London. Thank you.
Thank you. Assembly Member Lord Bailey.
I'll be very quick, just say, Len, we very much are waiting to welcome you into the House. I'll say one thing that we should all get used to. You are Lord Duval, not Lord Len. Lord Duval. And look, you're going to be a great addition. We can continue our collaboration in there, and we can shout London's voice really loudly. Really look forward to seeing you.
Look, thank you for these very kind words, and it's quite nice. Oh, sorry. Assembly Member Wilson, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Difficult to follow what's already been said, because I agree with every single word, even in my short time of knowing you compared to others. I would say I don't agree with the House of Lords as it's currently constituted. I don't think that I don't think this current round of appointments as a whole is a good thing for excluding the party that's been in the clear national lead in 180 consecutive opinion polls. However, if we have to have a House of Lords in its current form, it's really, really important there are good people in it. And we've heard words from others have said all about your years of experience, knowledge, passion for London, and I'm well aware of that. Also, personally, very grateful for the way when I joined the Assembly last year, you were very welcoming and supportive when we were sitting next to each other over there, and our little chats, I think, have been very helpful to me on a personal level as well. So I'm delighted to see your elevation. Many, many congratulations. And on top of that, I think it is great for London and for this Assembly to have that strong voice representing us in that body. Thank you.
Well, look, thank you. Sorry, Assembly Member Prince.
I'm going to stand up because I think it's befitting to stand up, and I shall address you obviously as Lord Duval correctly. I couldn't really let this pass as a former constituent of yours, Len, as you probably know, and also a fellow hammer. I've got a bone to pick with you. You say these guys are from your constituency. Have you looked round? We've got a gooner up there. No offence. My two sons are gooners, unfortunately. No, Len, you've done a marvellous job while you've been here with us. I hope you'll be staying. Well, I kind of hope you'll be staying. Obviously, if we won, I wouldn't object. The thing is that, although we haven't always seen eye to eye, you've always been, I think we've always been very fair, and you've always listened. You've always had the time to listen to another point of view, even if at the end of it you don't agree with it. I think that takes a big person to do that. I thank you for all the work that you've done with the armed forces. No one's mentioned that. That's a great job. Hopefully you'll take that into the Lords with you, Len. But I think it's really important that we have people in the Lords that have the experience and the knowledge that you have about local government and regional government. I don't think that they understand it as well as they should. So it's going to be a fantastic addition to the House having you there on the red benches. Finally, as I did mention, you are a season ticket at West Ham. Has Karen been in touch to see if you can sit in the director's box in future games?
I'll still be sitting in the stands. Look, thank you very much. Thank you very much for those kind words. And I'm going to not get emotional, but actually it was quite special to do that. But let's get on and start taking 10 chunks out of each other in many ways. Because this is unreal, Mr. Mayor. This is unreal, as you will know, in terms of that. But look, I can't thank you enough as colleagues in some ways. Look, the reason why I'm in the House of Lords is probably about, you used to say it about if you had an OBE, it was other buggers' efforts, do you know what I mean, or something like that. I've been shaped by working with people and people that have given me opportunities over the years, and that has made the contribution to it. Of course, I've done something myself, but actually it's those contributions and those opportunities that others have allowed me. The Mayor allows me to be the Armed Forces champion. It's the Mayor's policies that I'm enacting, and without him, as an example, you couldn't go on to do it. And without your contributions in helping, shaping me, even though I might disagree with two of you at times, has made me what I am and what I've been able to achieve. And that is really about that. So thank you very much. OK, let's get back to business. Let's get back to normality. Declarations of interest. Can I ask the Assembly to note the interest set out in item 2? Do Assembly members have any other disclosable pecuniary interests which relate to the items on the agenda for today's meeting, or any other relevant interest, including any declarations in relation to gifts, hospitalities, which are not reflected on the authority's register of gifts and hospitalities?
Assembly Member Russell, Chair.
I may come in on the Zipcar, on the back of the Zipcar question later. I'm a member of Zipcar. It's declared on my register of interest, but I just wanted to be completely transparent.
Thank you for that. Any others? Let's then move on. Item 4 on the Mayor's report. Can I ask the Assembly to formally receive the Mayor's report covering the period for the 7th of November to the 4th of December 2025? The Mayor will now provide an oral update of up to 5 minutes in length on matters occurring since the publication of his report.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just say to the sixth form students from the Royal Borough of Greenwich, you're here on a historic day. I've known Len Duval for more than 25 years, and when he welcomed you, it's the first time I saw him smile. And during those wonderful speeches from colleagues from every party on the Assembly, I saw him for the first time in 25 years blush. And so you're here on a historic day. Can I congratulate you on your elevation to the House of Lords, Chair? This is thoroughly well-deserved and a testament to your public service, your record-breaking 25 years on the London Assembly, including as Chair, your 11 years as a councillor in the Royal Borough of Greenwich. You've supported, held to account and worked with 3 now mayors of this great city. And we're looking forward to welcoming you back here at the next Mayor's Question Time with the title of Lord Duval under your belt. Congratulations, Len.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before we start, I want to take a moment to remember the victims of the appalling terrorist attack at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia last weekend. This was a despicable act of anti-Semitic hatred, one which targeted Jewish people for no other reason than their faith. Today we join millions of Londoners and those across the globe in mourning the innocent lives cruelly stolen, and in unequivocally condemning the heinous and cowardly actions of the perpetrators. As Jewish Londoners come together to celebrate Hanukkah, we're doing everything we can in our powers to keep them safe. I've been in close contact with the Met Police since last weekend and can confirm They have stepped up their presence at Hanukkah events across London, and they'll continue to operate with increased visibility in Jewish communities throughout this week and going forward. As my team and I lit a menorah on Monday, we spoke about the meaning of Hanukkah. It's a story about hope and resilience, overcoming prejudice and persecution, about light triumphing over darkness. Faced with darkness once again, I believe those of us who aren't Jewish must stand in solidarity with our Jewish neighbours. We must come together to rid our society of the evil of anti-Semitism and defeat this vile form of hatred wherever it rears its ugly head. On Tuesday night, Chair Trafalgar Square hosted the first live Hanukkah event since the pandemic as part of our Hanukkah on the Square celebrations. And I want to congratulate the Jewish Leadership Council and London Jewish Forum on organising such a wonderful evening of celebration. In a time of grief and mourning, they sent the world a message of love and joy. It was a call to set aside fear, division and violence, and to build a future defined by hope, unity and peace. In that spirit, I want to wish those celebrating in London and around the world a happy Hanukkah. Chair, can I also take this opportunity to wish every member of the Assembly, your families and your staff who support you a very Merry Christmas, and I hope you will have a fantastic rest during this festive season. Thank you, Chair. I look forward to answering questions during the course of this morning.
Let's now move to the questions on the priority order paper. Each group is allocated an amount of time to ask their questions that is proportionate to their size. The first question is entitled, On the Side of London as Assembly Member Turrell. But before I bring him in, I had the privilege of meeting some of you earlier today. So for those that weren't in that meeting, I just want to remind you, if you're going to bring your question up, just please try to make it to relate to the original question. Secondly, it would be helpful. I know that you're all excited and you're getting to ask a question of the Mayor, but it would be nice if we allowed the Mayor to try to answer it before we interrupt him, at least to get a semblance of what he wants to get across. If we could do that, I think it would be a better meeting on that. So I'm wishing you well in the coming couple of hours. We will have a break midway through. So let's move on. Assembly Member Turrell.
Chair, can I thank the member for his question? I promise to be a mayor for all Londoners. So the best way to answer this question is to imagine a child born in London. Thanks to the ULEZ, they can breathe cleaner air and grow up with healthy lungs. I was told it would take 200 years to get air pollution down to legal levels. We did it in 9. When that child goes to primary school, they're now entitled to a nutritious free school meal, helping them to do better, while supporting their families and others with the cost of living crisis. When they're a bit older, they'll be able to walk through London knowing that they're less likely to be a victim of violent crime than the rest of England and Wales. They'll also be able to access positive opportunities in a youth club or holiday scheme due to our investment in the country's first violence reduction unit. Of course, there is much more to do, and I'll never be complacent about keeping Londoners safe, but we're making impressive progress. If a young person leaves school without a job, with a low income or a limited formal education, they can get free training available aged 19 or over. They might go on to get one of the 330,000 jobs we've helped to create through City Hall initiatives. If they need to get to work, they can take the Elizabeth line, the most used railway service in the UK, or the Superloop, riding one of the more than 2,600 zero-emission buses on London's streets. If they want to hop on their bike, they'll be able to use a protected cycleway because we've increased them 5-fold since 2016. One day they might be ready to buy their first home, maybe one of the hundreds of thousands that we completed, or they could get a council home, which we've been delivering in record numbers. Like millions of Londoners, they'll be proud to live in what has been voted, yet again, the best city in the world. There is no doubt that previous governments' relentlessly anti-London agenda held back our city, and many continue to talk London down rather than defending what the capital represents and celebrating our successes. But the majority of Londoners can see how our city has got fairer, greener and more prosperous in the last 9 years, and they have hope for the future. They know they have a mayor who's on their side and a government that finally wants to work with London rather than do our capital down.
Thank you for that answer, Mr. Mayor, and I wish you a Merry Christmas and, of course, congratulate the Chair on his peerage. Mr. Mayor, you mentioned housing, and you say you're on the side of Londoners when it comes to housing. But in reality, aren't you on the side of blockers? At the last mayoral question time, you dismissed councils like Bexley and Bromley as NIMBY councils. Yet, under your London plan, they have consistently approved enough homes to meet the target which you set them. The people who aren't delivering the homes are the developers who have been buying up the greenbelt and then sitting on the brownfield lands, leaving them undeveloped. So will you correct the record in regards to referring to Bexley and Bromley as NIMBY councils?
Chair, it's quite clear we've got a perfect storm of housing crisis across the country, including London. Part of that is that councils have been unwilling to give permission to schemes in numbers they should. And Bexley and Bromley are two examples of councils that aren't doing enough to address the housing crisis. The other part of the equation is the pressures facing developers.
I'm just going to have to jump in there, Chair, on that previous claim. You said Bexley and Bromley aren't doing enough. Yet, throughout this London plan, they have consistently approved enough homes to meet the target you set them in the London plan, meaning they are meeting the requirement you said were enough homes. Councils don't build the homes, Mr. Mayor. Developers build the homes. Developers are the ones not building the homes. Councils like Bexley and Bromley are consistently approving them, yet you are punishing councils, not punishing developers. You're caving into developers because you're letting them have what they want, which is to build on the greenbelt.
Well, you've heard now an admission from a Conservative. Councils don't build homes. Well, Tory councils don't build homes, but Labour ones do. And this mayor has been investing record sums, invested in councils to build homes. And Labour councils have been building homes.
Who have owned property development companies have gone bust, Mr. Mayor. Are you encouraging more councils to take risky investments with their council tax money? Are you encouraging more London councils to file for bankrupt?
As I recall, it was Bexley Council that went with a begging bowl to the previous government, asking them to avoid them being made bankrupt. Bexley Council, not a Labour council here. But he has to admit, a few moments ago, he made an admission. And his admission was heard by everyone here, and we will make sure that admission is heard by Londoners and others across the country, which is Conservative councils hate council homes. Well, we want to build homes that Londoners can afford to live in.
I
those
always
are going to be
admire
your
ability to wishfully think and will phrases into existence, Mr. Mayor. But here's a phrase that you put into existence yourself. You and your Deputy Mayor have said you are in favour of brownfield first. You want brownfield sites developed first, despite caving in to let developers who have dragged their feet on delivering homes off the hook and caving into their demands. Will you ban developers from building on the greenbelt if they own undeveloped brownfield sites?
So, Chair, I'm surprised the member doesn't realise that 99% of homes built in London are built on brownfield site. We know, though, if we're going to build the amount of homes we need across our city, 88,000 homes a year, even if the member tries to rewrite history with Bexley and Bromley, we're not going to get there on just those brownfield sites. We also know there's a lot of greenbelt site that is inaccessible, poor quality, badly maintained. So I don't apologise. As one of the ways to address the housing crisis, we will be working with councils and developers, attaching conditions and building on some of those poor, inaccessible, badly maintained greenbelt sites.
Mr. Mayor, I think you've proven today that, once again, you ignore the facts. The facts are that councils like Bexley and Bromley have consistently approved enough homes to meet your target. The people who aren't delivering the homes are the people you're rewarding. So you're spineless against developers, you're spineless against trade unions, you're spineless against this anti-London government. We can all see whose priorities you are on, or whose side you're on, Mr. Mayor, and it certainly isn't the side of Londoners.
Well, that's very well read. Well done.
Assembly Member Garrett.
Morning, and a Merry Christmas to you and your family. So here's another area where you might say that you're on the side of Londoners. The government announced yesterday the return of the Erasmus scheme, which it's a really lovely scheme. It's something you've campaigned for and you have welcomed. And it's a great opportunity for those young people who go on it. But it is immensely expensive. So I would ask you, for the cost of replacing, for the cost of the, I'm sorry, there's some staggering rudeness from some of my colleagues here. For the cost of 1 year of the Erasmus scheme, you could replace the Hammersmith Bridge 3 times over. Which one of those two do you think Londoners would prefer to see happen?
Well, I'm really surprised that the member isn't aware about the ownership of the bridge. The bridge is owned by the council, not the GLA or the TfL. He'll be aware of the rules in relation to capital receipts, in relation to transport receipts, in relation to council ownership. He also will know the idea that you pivot and switch funding for a central government scheme that brings us in close alignment with the European Union, gives huge opportunities to young Londoners, supports London businesses, and increases connectivity between London and the European Union. Is very different from the previous government's failure to support the council. We're hoping, working with this government, working with the council, we'll be able to have some good news for the residents and those around Hampstead and Fulham.
Sure. So this government has done nothing on Hammersmith Bridge, and they've spent all the money on Erasmus, 3 years' worth of, 3 times the cost of fixing Hammersmith Bridge. So the West London Orbital, for less than 1 year's cost of Erasmus, you could do brand new railway line from Hounslow, Hendon, West Hampstead. What do you think Londoners would prefer?
Well, I'm really pleased that members give me a chance to talk about the good news from the budget documents.
I haven't asked you to talk about the good news. I've asked you which one you think Londoners would prefer. Life's about choices, Mr. Mayor. You've campaigned for Erasmus. It's very clear. Lots of your colleagues here think it's a brilliant thing. I actually think it's quite a nice thing. It's expensive, and that money could have been used for something else. So do you think Londoners would prefer 1 year of Erasmus or to build the West London Orbital?
Well, according to the Brexit posters, we were going to get back £350 million a week when we left the European Union. That 1 week's worth of Brexit money pays for the bridge and some.
So I notice you refused to answer on that either. There's a Docklands Light Railway extension into Thamesmead. That's a bit more expensive than the other two. That's actually, the entire project is 2 years' worth of Erasmus. So do you think it would be better to have the entire DLR line extension into Thamesmead funded, or would it be better to have 2 years of Erasmus?
So, Chair, I'm really surprised the members missed out the great news on the DLR extension to Thamesmead, or the great news in relation to the innovative funding the government's going to work with us in relation to the West London Orbital and
Sorry, how much have the government given us for the DLR, Mr.
extension.
Mayor? How much have they given us for the DLR?
So the government has confirmed there'll be funding, part of the cost for the DLR. And just like the Elizabeth line, and just like the Northern Line extension, we'll be using innovative funding in relation to the further cost of those projects. He will know, I hope, that the Elizabeth line was funded partly by the government, about a third. The other 2/3 by us borrowing in terms of London taxpayers paying and businesses. The Northern Line extension also was funded by future receipts. Similarly, the DLR extension to Thamesmead will be a combination of central government funding confirmed in the budget, and that's borrowing against future receipts as well. And the innovative funding the government's agreed to in the budget document in relation to West London Orbital and in relation to Baker Line extension is fantastic news for London and fantastic news for those of us who are passionate about improving transport infrastructure. I'm really surprised that members against those.
You're not passionate about improving transport infrastructure. You're passionate about Erasmus, and that's fine. It's a perfectly lovely scheme, but it's immensely expensive. And as you've just confirmed, what the government is saying is we can build a DLR extension and we can pay for it by borrowing money. And the money that the government could have given us to do that, they've spent on Erasmus, which you've campaigned for. And I've just asked you which of those you think would be better, and you just refused to engage with the question. So about an even bigger project, the Bakerloo line extension, that's maybe 4 billion or so. That's only 5 years worth of Erasmus. So in less than a decade, we could have the Bakerloo line extension into all the way down to South London. We could have the DLR extension into South London. We could have the West London Orbital linking West and North London. And we could have the Hammersmith Bridge replaced. And instead, we will have an Erasmus scheme. And you really think the Erasmus scheme is better than all of that?
Is it my turn?
Yeah. It's your turn.
Fine.
Well, he's not going to answer the question, is he?
Well, you've not given him a chance yet. He's about to. He's
So what was that
pressed on
long
the mic.
pause, Chair?
Mr Mayor, we'd like to hear you.
And the idea that he was chastising the Lib Dems for being rude, I mean, it's quite remarkable, the chutzpah of this guy. So we were promised, if we voted to leave the European Union, we were promised, according to the Brexiteers, every week, a cheque for £350 million every week. That cheque never arrived, let alone it bouncing. What this government is doing, which I fully support, is closer alignment with our nearest trading partner. Every successful economy in the world does the most trade with its nearest partner. Now, the joy of the Erasmus scheme is it allows youth mobility. People who've previously been on Erasmus are now not just leaders of European countries and British countries, but chief executives involved in venture capital, involved in leading businesses. That hinterland we built up over successive decades has helped us be prosperous, and I'm really happy that from January 27, there'll be a new generation of British young people, not just Londoners, it's very parochial, British young Londoners, but also European young people coming to our country, learning from each other, helping fill the gaps in
He's just monologuing now, Chair. I think I've given him enough time.
But also
It's
going
very
back to country
obvious.
of origin,
I think you've
for
had
having
enough
fallen
time,
in love
Mr. Mayor.
with
You're not answering the
London.
question.
And I'm really disappointed that
Chair,
members
he's
talking down
monologuing.
young
Look,
people and
this
talking
is
down
about
the European Union.
short-term vibes versus building a better long-term future for London. A century from now, people could be enjoying stuff which Labour is not building. You've chosen your side. It's the wrong one. Thank you, Chair.
OK, let's move on. Assembly Member Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, it was easy to get lost in all that questioning because I believe the question was about being on the side of Londoners. But speaking of being on the side of Londoners, what difference has policies like the delivery of 100 million free school meals made to families in London?
Which I can hear a groan from another route Conservative, because they voted against and have regularly spoken against universal free school meals. I remember a phrase used by a Conservative, and I quote, "There's no such thing as a free meal. There's no such thing as a free lunch." So I'm incredibly proud that we've shown our commitment to children in our city by, for the first time ever, making sure every child that goes to primary school receives a nutritious free meal. And the difference it makes is to the child, their ability to learn. It affects the child's behaviour. They're better behaved. It means that the relationships between a school and parents are less adversarial because you're not chasing school dinner debt. We know the difference is made to the families whose children go to primary schools. Each child in a primary school per year, that family saves £500 a year. Just imagine if you've got 2 or 3 additional children. Add to that this government's policy of free breakfast, which has been rolled out across London. We've got the potential now of our children going to school, having a healthy breakfast, a healthy lunch. And we know that not just improves the quality of life for the child, their family, but it increases productivity because the child is learning more as well. I'm just disappointed. There are some of the Assembly who were against that policy, are still against that policy, which is one of the reasons why they're trying to talk over us talking about these achievements.
No, I think you're right. I mean, it's not just that parents and teaching staff and children value these meals. It really shows London's children how loved and wanted they are in our city, and it gives them the springboard for a happy, healthy early childhood onto those crucial teenage years. In my constituency, in Barnet anyway, 4.8 million free school meals have been delivered, and in Camden it's 1.1 million, which is a huge number. As well as saving parents money, I think there's a real pride here. And do you share my pride in the impact it's having on children's learning and behaviour in a classroom?
I mean, all of us as adults, as rational, logical adults, have had the feeling of being hungry. Combination of being hungry and affecting our mood. Imagine being a child, the impact it has on you, particularly if you've skipped breakfast for a variety of reasons. Sometimes we know some busy parents are sometimes, in the past were packing their kids packed lunches that may not have been the most nutritional as well. And what this has done is taken the pressure off the parents, but also making sure those children are having a nutritious lunch, which means they learn more. They learn more in the classroom. They have better behaviour. But also, we know it means that teachers aren't worried about their pupils. Parents aren't worried about having to skip meals to make sure their kids can eat. And this will pay dividends in years to come by them doing better at school academically, but also the soft skills. They have them breaking bread with friends of different backgrounds, not having to sit on a separate table because they got the free school meal voucher. And all the evidence from the first 2 and a bit years is it's been a huge boon for our young people, our schools and our city. And that's why my pledge is, as long as I may, I'll carry on providing universal free school meals.
Thank you so much for that, and I look forward to further questions from colleagues about how you are on the side of all Londoners. Thank you, Chair.
Just before we go to the next question, can we welcome students from London's Enterprise Academy, Tower Hamlets, and I think they are just there. Thank you. Let's go back. Assembly Member Hall.
Thank you. And is the Mayor on the side of Londoners? And at the moment, at this point, I'm talking about Jewish Londoners. You stated on Monday, London must always be a place where people of all faiths and backgrounds can live side by side in safety and harmony. Absolutely right. Well, do you think Jewish people feel safe in London at the moment? I'm being told by so many people that they're even frightened of wearing a kippah. They won't wear the Star of David. They are terrified when they come into London because all they see are demonstrations, Palestinian flags, and then they hear chants like globalise the Intifada and put the Zios in the ground. Do you think those comments are anti-Semitic?
I think many Jewish people don't feel safe in London. Many Jewish people are feeling frightened. I welcome the clarity provided by the Commissioner this week, but also the review ordered by the Home Secretary from Lord Ken MacDonald, KC, in relation to the current public order and hate crime legislation. I think the particular phrases she's used aren't just anti-Semitic. The clarity provided by the Commissioner confirms that they'll also be breaking the law and people will be arrested under the relevant public order legislation and the hate crime legislation if they use those chants.
Good. Well, it's about time, because for 2 years, Jewish residents have not felt safe. They have never felt more unsafe than they do now, especially after the atrocities of the weekend. I'll leave that now and we'll see how we go. But all I can say is their faith in you and their faith in coming into London has completely disappeared. Now, I'd like to go on to people that are victims of these rape gangs that I will keep going on, and I will continue, Mr. Mayor, until something happens about this. You've made previous assertions that London does not have the same type of grooming gangs as seen in Bradford, Manchester, Leeds, Sheffield, Newcastle, Middlesbrough, Blackpool, Keighley, Halifax, Huddersfield, Blackburn, Barrow, Nelson, Birmingham, Nottingham, Coventry, Leicester, Derby, Aylesbury, Ipswich, Chelmsford, High Wycombe, Peterborough, Barking, Bristol, Banbury, everywhere but in London. Are you sure that we do not have the same gangs like the rest of the country?
Chair, that's not quite what I've said. What I've said is echoing the words of the Commissioner now and the Assistant Commissioner, I think Matt Twist, on previous occasions. They've both explained that there are serious issues in relation to child sexual exploitation. They've both explained that there are a variety of examples of children being exploited, including grooming. And they've both explained, and I've echoed, that I've asked them to make sure no stone is left unturned. So they're going back 15 years, as they've been asked to do by the National Inquiry, using the wide definition given by the inquiry, which includes, when more than one person grooms a young person, but also includes intrafamilial, peer-to-peer gangs. The particular focus of the police in the recent past, for obvious reasons, has been around county lines. And I think the Commissioner couldn't have been clearer when the member asked him a similar question at the last plenary.
The member will continue to ask questions because every day that goes by, other girls and sometimes boys are groomed. Every single day. I still don't think you realise the impact your being so rude to me just under a year ago had when you said, what does the member mean? What is she talking about? You knew damn well what I was talking about because it's been going on for years. You're the mayor of this great city. It's going on in London, and every day that goes by where we haven't got an inquiry in place, These girls and sometimes boys are suffering. And yet, if they look at your comments on it, you don't take it seriously enough. There should have been an inquiry put in place a long, long time ago. And you can look fed up with me asking if you like, but you better get used to it, because I will not stop until we've got an inquiry in place and these past cases are looked at and resolved and these girls get some form of closure.
Well, Chair, if I can be given a similar time to respond to that question slash speech. So I'd remind colleagues that when Alexis J undertook her inquiry and made a number of recommendations, not one of them was actioned by the previous government. In the meantime, victims and survivors were waiting for justice. I'm really pleased this government asked Dame Louise Casey to look into this matter. Dame Louise Casey recommended another national inquiry. I'm really pleased this new government has ordered that to happen, working with the NCA and others. I've been quite clear to the Met Police Service, we've got to make sure that victims and survivors receive justice, which is why I've asked them to go back 15 years, as the National Inquiry suggested, look at the wide definition provided by the inquiry to ensure no stone is left unturned, but also during my mayoralty, what's happened. I asked HMI to come in and look at the Met Police Service to make sure that they were treating children properly. We've got a child-first approach from the Met Police Service. There is a proper children's strategy. We've made sure tens of thousands of police officers and police staff have been retrained. We've invested in victim and survivors group.
I was talking specifically on grooming gangs. You know full well we're on a clock, Mr Mayor. You know full well you just run it down, which is despicable since you just never want to come and answer questions properly. I'll leave it there because of my time. Thank you, Chair.
Assembly Member James Small-Edwards.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Mr Mayor. On the subject of being on the side of Londoners, one way I think that we in the Labour group and you've been on the side of particularly young Londoners is by calling for the removal of the two-child benefit cap. With the government's removal of the two-child benefit cap, what assessment have you made of the impact that that will have on child poverty in London?
Well, it's worth reminding colleagues that it was a Conservative government who brought in this cap on those families with more than two children. According to experts and groups that work in this area, it's been the biggest driver of children entering poverty. I voted against this when I was going through the House of Commons in 2015, and I've been lobbying for a reversal of this policy. Some politicians from other parties have joined us in that lobbying as well. I'm really pleased that the government announced the cap to be lifted overnight. That takes about 42,000 children in London out of poverty. Over the course of this Parliament nationally, experts predict 500,000 children being taken out of poverty. Around half of those will be in London, and it's really important because of this narrative the Conservatives have built up about anybody receiving benefits must be a skiver to address this issue head on. Two-thirds of those children in poverty who don't receive any support in terms of universal credit and tax credits because they're more than two children, one of their parents is in work. So two-thirds are in work but in poverty. Another 14% have children below the age of 3 and can't work because of childcare issues. And the government's also bringing policies to support childcare. Good example of a Labour mayor working with a Labour government, getting a good outcome that will overnight address not just poverty, but the life chances of young Londoners. A good example of being on the side of Londoners.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And continuing on the issue of the two-child benefit cap, there are people, and I think you addressed this in your answer, some potentially in this chamber, who would say that children should be punished with poverty as a result of being born the third child of parents with low incomes. What would your response to that be?
Well, I think I'm embarrassed that there are public officials representing a city which, yes, is one of the 5th or 6th richest cities in the world, but also has deep ingrained poverty, biggest inequalities in terms of a region in the country, don't understand how poverty affects not just the individual child, but the family as well. We think that this change in government policy will benefit families to the tune of £50 a week. Imagine the difference that makes buying a decent birthday present, buying decent clothes that fit, eating properly, and so forth. And it's something I'm incredibly proud this Labour government's done.
Thank you. And finally, Mr Mayor, the government recently announced its new child poverty strategy. Have you done any assessment on what this might mean for London?
So we're working with experts across London to see the difference it'll make in London. The strategy in itself is, if you like, the North Star. The first part of that was the lifting of the cap on two-child benefit. There'll be other policies along the way that will support addressing the issue of child poverty. Breakfast clubs being one example, childcare being another example. We're keen to make sure those parents who have got childcare issues, the cost of childcare, have the ability to get childcare, but then the training to get the jobs that have been created in London. So there's a link with adult education as well. So we're working through the strategy, and we'll be lobbying the government for some of the policies required to implement the strategy as well.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Chair.
Assembly Member Best.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr Mayor. Last month, I asked you specifically whether you were going to consult or speak with the Chancellor regarding the leaked plans on pay per mile. You said then that you would stand up to this government if it tries to introduce pay per mile in London. Have you had those conversations now?
I didn't need to, because when I looked at the plans, what the government's considering is a version of road tax for those who got electric cars. So
no, Mr Mayor, when last month, and you can't move the goalpost now, which I, funnily enough, had money on you doing, but you can't move the goalpost now. I asked you about, if someone had taken the bet, I would have put it all on. You can't move the goalpost now, because last month I asked you about Rachel Reeves' leaked policy. Right? It was in black and white what we meant. You didn't say, but if it's this policy, I don't mind. You said no to that policy. You said no to pay per mile, and now you are backtracking, if that is what I hear correctly from you today.
I think there's a misunderstanding. The government is not introducing pay per mile.
The government is introducing pay per mile. It's literally, when you drive a mile, you pay for the mile, hence the phrase would be pay per mile you drive.
Well, let's wait and see what the Chancellor's plans are. As I've said,
the Chancellor has literally said she is bringing in pay per mile. Unless you believe that London does not exist in England and Wales, then that scheme will affect us. That means there will be pay per mile in London, something you said would never happen under your mayoralty, and something that you said only last month when you knew what the plans looked like. You said, I will stand up to this government if it tries to introduce pay per mile. Stand by your word, stand by Londoners.
Okay, my understanding is that what the government's considering is from 2028 introducing a vehicle excise duty for those electric cars that currently don't pay vehicle excise
And how would it be
duty.
deduced? How would they deduce what they pay?
The way it's produced is you charge vehicle excise duty for those electric cars.
No. How will they deduce how much the vehicles will pay?
Okay. I'd like to ask them, how does she think they're going to make sure every car has got a system?
I'm asking you, Mr Mayor, as many people have pointed out to you, it is Mayor's question time. I'm asking on this, how will they decide how much those owners pay? Can I help you? Would it by chance be by mile?
As I've just explained, the way they're going to do it is charge a vehicle excise duty fee for those vehicles that are zero emission. I'm more than happy for the member to write to me and set out how she thinks it will come in. I can then send that to the government and ask them for their views on what the member thinks the scheme may be. I'm quite clear in relation to a scheme in 2028 that may come in.
What I'm interested in is why you
VED.
stood on a manifesto that said no pay per mile in London, why you sat here in 2023 and told me no pay per mile in London, why last month I said, hey, there's these leaked plans that tell you exactly what pay per mile looks like in London, and you said, yes, I will stand against those, and yet you stand here today and say, actually, it's all good. That's what I'm interested in.
Well, as I sit here today, I'll repeat again, I've got no plans to bring in pay per mile. I'm quite clear pay per mile is not coming in from TfL as long as I'm mayor. The members referring to the plans the government may have in 2028, I'm more than happy to look at the government's plans if they are the same as the member is saying, and look into them. My understanding is they're not as the member is saying.
Thank you, Chair.
Just thinking through.
I think the Mayor is
just
confused.
thinking through
Thank
how
you.
it happened. I don't understand how you could have individualised paper mile by 2028. But I'm more than happy to take it away and look into it.
Right, Assembly Member McCartney.
Yes, thank you. And I think it's a shame that the Conservatives seeking their questioning to put a limit on the aspirations and opportunities of young people in our city. And I'm glad that you're not doing that. But can I ask about another way that you're standing up for Londoners and being on their side? And that's your success in lobbying for a tourist levy, a visitor levy to our city that will bring in new investment. But can I ask you, what opportunities does this new levy pose for Londoners?
So can I thank the member for raising this really important issue in relation to seeing what other cities across the globe do, whether it's Paris, Amsterdam, New York, Venice, and I could go on, where they charge an additional small fee to those of us tourists who go to the respective cities. One of the things I've been lobbying for since 2016, I've lost count of the number of Conservative chancellors I've had during that period. But the first chancellor we had in this Labour government, we've been successful in persuading her to devolve to, not just us, by the way, other mayors across the country should get this and will get this, the ability to levy this tourist levy. We're going to work closely with hospitality sector, tourism sector, councils and others to get the best possible scheme designed, to work with them about what the levy should be, how it will be collected, how it will be spent. But just imagine the potential to improve the public realm, to improve the offer for tourists, to improve public transport that supports tourism, but also not just focused on central London, important though it is, but think about outer London. How can we help outer London in terms of improving the tourist offer? So I'm really excited about this piece of good news. Like I said, lobbying since 2016. We're going to work closely with those key partners to make sure we get the best scheme possible.
Thank you, and I'm glad you mentioned Outer London there, because in my constituency of Haringey in Enfield, for example, we have the wonderful Bruce Castle and Park, and in Haringey and in Enfield, Forty Hall, for example, well worth a visit from central London. So you will be standing up and trying to make sure that some of the funding is spread out across our city, not just stay in central London.
You'll be aware of the importance of the 2028 Euros and the stadium in your patch. The Spurs Stadium is hosting games, but also the London Borough of Culture in 2027 as well. So we get the importance of investing in all parts of our city. That's why the work we do with the councils is so important. I had a brief chat last week with the chair of the London Councils, Claire Holland, and we're really excited to be working together again on this, but also really importantly the hospitality sector and the tourism sector as well. They've got to see what's in it for them. And it's really important to work with them to make sure they see the improvements and the value added as a consequence of the tourism levy.
Thank you, Chair.
Assembly Member Boff.
How can you be on the side of London's leaseholders if your affordable housing funds are still being used to support new leasehold schemes?
Can I thank the member for raising this? I'm somebody who's long campaigned for a change in the provision around leasehold law. I think there should be common hold. So the leasehold schemes that we had are part of the previous deal with MHGLG. We've made sure they're 999-year leases. But he's right to raise this. That's why I'm lobbying the government, member, for ground rent to be capped at £250, but also to address some of the issues raised by campaigners around this area. We couldn't change the rules in relation to the previous funding from MHGLG, but going forward, we are trying to secure, particularly if there's a change in the law in terms of legislation, to make sure in the future they're all common hold.
You don't have absolute control over the law, though, do you? The other day, the very excellent former Assembly member, Florence Eshalomi, asked the Prime Minister about when the leasehold reform bill would arrive. He stalled. Will you be contacting him to treat leasehold reform as a priority?
Yeah, we are in touch with his officials, and I thank them again for raising this issue. It is a concern to me, the delay, because in the meantime, he'll be aware people's dreams of being a homeowner has turned into a nightmare for the reasons he knows well. So we also work closely with the chair of the Select Committee, who's mentioned, the excellent Florence Eshalomi, to see what we can do working together to try and get some movement on this.
You could take the lead on this. I know you like to be seen to be taking the lead on all sorts of issues. You could issue an instruction that the affordable housing money is only used for alternative forms of tenure to leasehold.
I'm afraid we can't, because there are conditions MHCLG attaches which we agreed. So I'm not complaining about those conditions. He'll also be aware in relation to the law as it currently is, it's going to be applied rather than as the law may be.
Yeah, but that's not true, is it, Mr. Mayor? Because you can use shared freehold, where the freehold is held by residents rather than offshore investment companies.
That works in terms of small residential. We are exploring all options in relation to the land when there's a JV. We're also exploring with the government a change in legislation. We're also quite keen to ensure the legislation bites sooner rather than later. What we can't do is change the conditions of the funding the MHCLG have given us.
But you can do that. Are you actively pursuing alternative forms? It's, what you want to do and what you lobby for is one thing, but you can actually take concrete action now, and it doesn't appear as though you're taking that action. You're exploring things. Exploring doesn't do anything. Do something, Mr. Mayor, about these new schemes that are coming forward that are trapping people in a tenure that is tantamount to modern-day slavery.
Well, Chair, what I'm not going to do is break the rules under which the government gives us funding. I've not done that with a Conservative government. I won't do that with this government. It's not to do with the colour of the government. It's to do with the terms upon which, a grant's given to us. We will speak to MHCLG about greater flexibility. We will continue to lobby the government to change the law. And I know there are colleagues in Parliament who understand why this is a really important issue.
Well, Londoners will look to you taking action rather than just writing letters. Thank you, Chair.
Assembly Member Georgiou.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And can I just say, I heard a rumour that you're only being put in the Lords to keep an eye on the Lord Bailey of Paddington. Mr. Mayor, firstly, Merry Christmas to you and your family. But we're here to talk about whether you're on the side of Londoners. And Mr. Mayor, I'm currently teaching my daughter the 12 Days of Christmas, and I thought I'd give you my rendition. On the 12th day of Christmas, Sadiq Khan gave to me 12,000 air miles, 11 Khan's cronies, 10 years of carnage, 9 soaring precepts, £8 for Blackwall, 7 scandal-hit ministers, 6 Taylor Swift freebies, 5 days of tube strikes, 4 Greenbelt areas destroyed, $3 billion for the Chagos Islands, 2 benefits budgets and a bung for the RMT. With this record, how can you be on the side of Londoners?
Well, Chair, can I commend the member's 3-year-old daughter for writing that? Chair, it's just worth reminding ourselves, the member actually thought about it, he wrote it down, he practiced this morning, and he did it. It just beggars belief he's on the Assembly. I think there's no prospect of him being elevated to the House of Lords anytime soon, Chair.
It beggars belief that you're still Mayor of London. And usually, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, you say, do I prepare these things in the mirror? Well, at least I can look at myself in the mirror, Mr. Mayor. So with these 12 days of Sadiq Khan, what part of those are you most proud of?
I think I'm proud of the 100 million meals we've delivered in primary schools for our children. I'm proud of the more than 500,000 positive opportunities we've provided to young people. I'm proud that bus fares in London are £1.75 still frozen for the 7th year, and tram fares cheapest in the country. I am proud of winning 3 times. I think the only person I've beaten is not in the House of Lords is the one sitting next to him. The rest they elevate to the House of Lords when I beat them. I'm proud of the fact that we delivered on the promise made to the previous government of 116,000. new homes. I'm proud that we broken the record of new council homes.
Well,
since the
Mr. Mayor,
1970s.
you're not sticking to my question, which are the 12 days of Sadiq Khan.
Asked a question.
But what I will say, what a great idea Assembly Member Hall was the Baroness Hall of Harrow. I think we'll take that back. Very well done, Mr. Mayor. You finally come up with one good idea. I'll leave it there, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much.
The question is for which party?
There's no question whatsoever about that.
Assembly Member Lord Bailey.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Happy Christmas to you and yours. There is one group of Londoners in particular who really don't feel like you're on their side, and that is police officers. Police morale is at a rock bottom low. I'll ask you one question to open. Do you know how many Metropolitan Police officers have committed suicide under your tenure as Mayor?
Well, Chair, I had the pleasure of spending last night with the Met Police at the Carol service at Westminster Abbey. It was a gorgeous service and spent time with families as well. The Metropolitan Police Commissioner was asked this question by the member, and I'd refer the member to his answer in terms of the answer he gave. The answer he gave was, his understanding was, because the numbers were so small, he wasn't sure what they were, but he would write to the member. I can follow that up in relation to write to the member. The member previously raised an issue with me that I did follow up in relation to the lack of central database of deaths by suicide across the country, including the Met Police Service. My office did raise this with the police, and again, if he's not had a response, I'll make sure he gets a response.
I've had no response, but Mr. Mayor, it's clear that you don't know the answer. Neither did the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, and that's because the data is not collected. You will know, everybody around this table will know that, but as a Metropolitan Police officer, you will deal with innumerable stabbings, rapes, suicides, child sex grooming gangs. You'll be exposed to people with poor mental health, all of which that will affect your mental health. So why isn't this data collected?
The Commissioner explained this, and I'm really surprised he didn't refer to this in his question just now. There are sometimes inquests held where a verdict of suicide could be returned. Sometimes a death certificate could say it's suicide. It's for the family to let the police know in those circumstances, but the Commissioner was referring to the fact that there are very few, he couldn't think of any, very few examples in the Met where those two things have happened. And often it's difficult to categorise a death as a death by suicide. And that's, I think, one of the complexities of this, which is why I suggested that his idea was a good one about a national system of collecting this, because we don't know whether there is a serious issue in the police service for the reasons he said, the stresses officers suffer, because we don't measure it. I'm a firm believer in measuring it to see how good a bad problem is. That's why I supported his idea for a central way of recording this. It hasn't happened in any of the 43 police forces, but I'm happy to work with him to get a central system.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But to be clear, other police forces do collect this data. And all of the complexities that you've explained, which do exist, other police forces, many smaller police forces, have found a way around this. So I don't accept the Commissioner's interpretation of the problem.
Can I work with him on that? Can we just offline, if he could let me know which forces do it well, I'm more than happy to say to the police, look, police force X does this, why can't we? He puts out a good challenge, which I'm ready to take on.
I'll make a suggestion and offer. The Police Federation are supporting me on this work. They can provide that link. And I want to ask you a direct question. I currently have an amendment in Parliament that will mandate that police forces collect this data. Will you support me, particularly with the Met, will you support me in pushing this through?
Not at the moment. I need to see the details of the clause he's pushing because mandate, for the reasons I've said, I'd be a bit careful. But I'm more than happy to take this away. And if it's the case there are no concerns, more than happy to support this publicly as well as privately as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to go back to your policing minister in the Lords and suggest that you are in favour of having this happen.
Subject to the stuff I've said, yeah, more than happy to. The key point is, on a serious note, what you said at the beginning, which is some of the things that police see and experience is incredibly stressful. And the genesis of this is he wants to get to the root of this. Operation Hampshire was a good way of getting to injuries and stuff. But, because we're not measuring it, we don't know how bad a problem is. And what he's trying to get to is measure it, that we can see it may be no problem at all, which is, we'll both be very happy, but it could be a big problem. So I'm more than happy to agree with the sentiment. But if I could go and just look at the consequences.
I accept you need to look at the detail, but I will make this one last point. Police morale in London is at an all-time low. This is an opportunity for you to demonstrate, not with kind words, not with fancy press releases, but with real action, that you're on the side of our police officers. It will make a significant difference to the safety of Londoners, young, old, black, white, green, white, blue. We need the morale of our police officers to be lifted up, and they're looking to you for some leadership. Thank you.
Can I show this issue of police morale? And I want to deal with this head on. Look, the police service is working incredibly hard with my support to invest in the police service. That's one of the reasons why we've been working really hard on a number of issues to do with reform. Some of that reform the Commission has undertaken will affect morale. So if you're somebody who joined the police service and you're a racist or a misogynist or a homophobic, I want you to have low morale. I want you to leave. So let's be quite clear in relation to this issue of police morale. This is the biggest organisational change the Met Police has faced since it was founded those hundreds of years ago. In relation to lobbying for better pay for the police, I'm on their side. Better kit for the police, I've invested more than double the previous mayor. So to be quite clear in relation to the issues of police morale, particularly when he's praying in the name of the Police Federation.
So can I just say this to you then, Ray? Let's be very, very clear. The vast majority of police officers are nothing but hard-working people who want to serve the people of London. Some of the work you're doing around reforming the police is entirely necessary, but rank-and-file officers would say they are under attack by you and their profession, and they see nobody on their side. I'm offering you an opportunity to do a really important thing, not only for their safety, but also for their morale. We must have police who feel good, because that keeps us all safe.
I agree completely with that. Can I thank him for saying that and the way he said it? I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Assembly Member Desai.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, talking about bad deals, one that comes to mind, a bad deal that comes to mind, a very bad deal, in fact, is the one that was negotiated on behalf of Londoners by ex-Mayor Boris Johnson. The deal agreed by the last Mayor and West Ham United Football Club for the London Stadium was a disaster for London. City Hall, and therefore London taxpayers, makes a loss on the stadium because the cost of operations exceeds the rent paid. Sadly, we are stuck with this deal for 99 years because there is no break clause. If you had been mayor when this was negotiated, would you have agreed to these terms?
So I've got to be careful, Chair, because I know which team you support, and there are other members from other parties who also support support West Ham. I think it was an awful deal for London. It was the deal of the century for West Ham. I bet West Ham could not believe the deal they've got. Now, park for a second how unhappy fans are about the performance of the team and the way the club is being run and challenges with the London Stadium. But as far as the football club is concerned, they must still be laughing because of the deal the previous mayor did with them. You don't hear them talking about that. When you started the question talking about bad deals done by the previous mayor, you could have gone 12 different places in terms of bad deals done by the previous mayor. And we're still paying the price in relation to the contract signed by the previous mayor. Some of the terms are incredibly onerous on the GLA and on London. I don't blame West Ham for being given this great deal and biting the previous mayor's hand off. We've got to make it work, though. And what I've tried to do with West Ham is to make it work. It can sometimes get a bit adversarial, but I've tried to be collegiate with them because I don't blame them for signing this great deal. And so we've got to make it work. We've got to make it work for West Ham, for the London Stadium, for the Queen Elizabeth Park, and for that whole East Bank development. It's really important.
Deal of the century, Mr. Mayor. I couldn't agree more. And can I take this opportunity to extend Christmas greetings to you and your family and best wishes for 2026.
Hello, colleagues. Right, we're now moving to our second question on the order paper, which is holding private landlords to account in the name of Assembly Member Garbett.
Thank you, Chair. Can I thank the member for her question? There is no doubt in my mind that too many renters in London face high costs, poor conditions and a lack of security. All renters deserve decent and safe homes from fair and decent landlords, and that's why tenants and London's local authorities should be able to properly hold private landlords to account. While I have no formal powers over private renting in London, I am doing everything I can to improve renting for London's 2.7 million private renters. My private renting partnership brings together senior officers from all London boroughs to share intelligence and best practice in private rented sector enforcement. My online private rented tools and checkers also empower renters to make informed decisions about who they rent from and enables the public to report problems or concerns in a quick and easy way and holds landlords to account. These tools support London boroughs in their enforcement work, helping them to drive up standards and conditions in London's private rented sector and act as a deterrent to rogue landlords. However, councils can only hold landlords to account if they have the resources to do so. There's no doubt that years of underfunding by the previous government has left London's boroughs facing a chronic shortage in qualified housing officers. To help address this, I've launched a private rented sector qualification and funded and facilitated upskilling training for existing borough officers. Property licensing is one of the best tools boroughs have to hold private landlords to account, and we're developing a new project to support boroughs to introduce new and expanded schemes. I've also commissioned training for Met Police officers to help prevent illegal evictions, and I'm pleased that more than 11,000 frontline officers have been trained so far. The new Renters' Rights Act is a vital piece of legislation to help hold landlords to account and will deliver much-needed security and stability for renters after years of delay by the previous government. I'm delighted that so many of the recommendations for tenancy reform that I made in my 2019 London Model for Tenancy Reform are included in the Act, including ending Section 21 evictions. I'm also pleased that the government's recognised the need for additional council resource to fulfil the promise of the Act and enable councils to go further in holding landlords to account. Given this is national legislation, it will now need a national awareness campaign to ensure that renters and landlords fully understand their rights and responsibilities.
Thank you, and thank you for the work you're doing on training and supporting councils and the landlord licensing schemes. I wanted to specifically ask about a manifesto commitment you've made to support renters' unions. So explicitly it said, I will back renters to defend their rights with advice and guidance, including funding for groups such as renters' unions. But as far as I'm aware, no funding has gone to renters' unions yet, so I'm wondering when that will materialise.
So Chair, we are investing £11 million to fund organisations. In answer to a previous Mayor's question time, which you raised this issue, I did ask my Deputy Mayor to meet with them. My understanding is there's a date in the diary. And one of
the 11 million, I was provided with a list, and it's got some great organisations on it doing some great work to support people with debt and support, the renters can also access that, but it doesn't explicitly support renters' unions. So I'm explicitly asking if you're going to fund the renters' unions.
So Chair, if she's making representations, which I hope she is, in relation to next year's budget, then I'm more than happy to take this on board. But she can also be in touch offline. One of the reasons I was keen for my Deputy Mayor to meet with the union is if there's additionality they can provide in addition to the funding we give to advice centres and others to give tenants advice. But I'm more than happy to look into, subject to budget constraints, specific issues that she thinks that they could add.
Yeah, of course, because, we've seen rise in Section 21 evictions. As soon as it was floated by the government, landlords increased the use of that. And it's unions who are really on the side of renters, letting them know their rights and supporting them through that incredibly stressful time. So I think if we're going to fund unions, it needs to be now, because the Renters' Rights Act, as we know, is all about renters knowing their rights and being supported in this period.
My understanding is that Deputy Mayor, if he's not already met them, he's meeting them.
In the new year,
The obvious reason is because of the reason why now is because we're setting budgets for next year. I also recognise that there are some tenants who may go to a renters' union, who may not go to the CABs and others where we're funding. I want to get the advice to the people who need it the most. So that's one of the reasons I was keen for him to meet with them. But if there's any additional points that she thinks that this support could add, I'd really keen to hear.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'll let you know my thoughts on that. And the other point I wanted to raise, which again is a kind of just to get some clarity from you. So in this chamber in September, I was asking you about rent controls, and you said that you were making representations, and it was one of your priorities of things you were talking about, getting rent control powers. But in the week after that meeting when we spoke, the Housing Minister said to Parliament that the government had not received direct representations from the Mayor of London in respect to rent controls, and we had not discussed the introduction at local levels. That's a direct quote. So I wanted to know why the government is saying the opposite to what you said to me in the chamber.
I think, I can't remember the amount of times I've said publicly and privately that I think we need to bring in rent controls. I'm really happy to drop the Minister a note today to remind him about my public calls for rent controls. In the meantime, some good news. We will be introducing next year some City Hall rent control homes, key worker living rent homes. There's a title, but it's rent controlled. Homes. I think if there are three big issues, one is security of tenure, quality accommodation. The third big issue is the rent.
Absolutely.
Now, the tribunals may help. One of the things I'm asking the government to do when it comes to the database is to collect rents, what rent you're paying, because that intelligence is really important in terms of tribunal information. So that could be a backdoor way of affecting
I
rents.
think, and I'll take you up on that. I think it'd be really good if you wrote to just be really explicit and that renters know that you're fully doing all that advocacy that you can. Thank you.
Assembly Member Roberts.
Question,
question
4233.
Sorry. Sorry, it's the question in the name budget deal for London in the name of Assembly Member Roberts.
Can I thank the member for his question? The legacy left behind by the previous government, and to be fair, the coalition government before them, could not be clearer. A flatlining economy, stymied investment, a black hole in public finances, as well as a cost of living crisis. It's London's most vulnerable communities that have paid the biggest price. This inherited state of affairs, compounded by a catastrophic Brexit deal, disastrous mini-budget, and years of economic mismanagement, left the Chancellor with difficult decisions to make in the budget. However, after years of budgets that failed to deliver for London, this year's budget is proof that we have a government that recognises that investing in London is fundamental to boosting national economic growth. Working with the government, I've secured important wins for London, including the commitment to extend the DLR to Thamesmead, which will help to create 10,000 new jobs and unlock 25,000 new homes. I first started campaigning for this important scheme in 2018. The government's also agreed to give new powers to London to charge a tourism levy to boost economic growth, something I've been asking for since 2016. Crucially, scrapping the two-child benefit cap, which I voted against introducing as an MP in 2015 and have campaigned against for years, will have a significant impact across London, with more than 260,000 children benefiting and 40,000 children being lifted out of poverty overnight. Additionally, we've persuaded the government to give London an integrated settlement, which means that it will have more financial stability and flexibility across a full range of policies, helping deliver better outcomes for London. These are important wins and the latest in a long list of positive things I've secured through working closely with this government, including new planning reforms to enable me to accelerate development and tackle London's acute housing shortage and deliver economic growth. Recent confirmation that London will have 2 new towns at Cruise Hill, Enfield, and in Thamesmead, £322 million for house building through the City Hall Developer Investment Fund, £11.7 billion for affordable housing, the biggest and longest-term settlement in the GLA's history, support for an Oxford Street Mayoral Development Corporation to revitalise the Oxford Street area, the largest multi-year funding deal for TfL in over a decade, £2.2 billion, a new pilot to introduce a London-wide strategic licensing policy to strengthen our culture and hospitality sectors, and I could go on. These commitments demonstrate a clear shift working in partnership with this government.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. One part of the question which you didn't address was whether the Chancellor embraced her inner Peggy Mitchell and ordered you, get out of my office. Did she?
There's been lots of rehearsal taking place in advance of MQTs.
No.
Can I just say, I've never been thrown out of anybody's office as the Mayor, Minister, MP or a lawyer, but it helps. I've never received a red card at football either, nor, I think, slammed a door ever in my life.
Thank you. You may not have been thrown out, but the order may have been given, but there we are. The Prime Minister is going to order an inquiry into leaks regarding the budget and various stuff. Given the damaging nature of this allegation, will you be writing to the Prime Minister asking him to include this particular aspect in his inquiry?
About me being chucked out of the room?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Ah. There we go. Just on to, I mean, there was lots of stuff in there which was all about things which have been announced before the budget and what have you, but just on a couple of particular items, did you ask for the budget to unlock the funding needed for the Bakerloo line extension?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time lobbying the Treasury, DfT and MHLG on a variety of issues linked with that particular scheme and others, which is why I'm really pleased the budget document specifically says, and there's a working group will be set up, has been set up, to look at innovative financing for, in particular, West London Orbital and Bakerloo Line extension. He'll remember, as a council leader, the difference the investment in the Elizabeth Line made. Innovative funding. I was the minister who took through the business rate supplement bill. A third paid by central government, a third London taxpayers, and a third the business community, and similarly the Northern Line extension as well. We want a similar deal for BLE and West London Orbital as well.
Okay, good. So I was going to ask about the West London Orbital, so that's done. In terms of the DLR extension, which has been committed to. There's very few numbers attached to that. Have you got anything more which you can share with us on that particular aspect?
Yeah, of course I can. The reason why we were keen for it to be included in the budget was because it gives certainty to private developers in terms of JVs. So later on next year, we'll be setting out what the financial deal from the government is. Broadly speaking, the government will contribute monies in terms of a grant, and we'll also be given the powers to borrow against future receipts from the fares from the extension. We're talking to the government also about other potential land tax devices to help us fund not just the rest of the DLR extension, but also BLE and West London Orbital as well. That's one of the things the Innovative Finance we're looking at. But he will, this time next year, earlier than middle of next year, we'll have details of the financial settlement from the government.
Okay, thank you. Just sticking with the theme of fractured relationships with Labour colleagues, notwithstanding some of the greasy encomia which we've had from colleagues opposite, are you aware of the levels of frustration and anger across this chamber regarding the failure to share the draft estate strategy with the Police and Crime Committee, but sharing it with the London Crime Policing Board, and also the fact that we didn't get a response to our summons until about 6 o'clock yesterday evening for a meeting happening today?
Well, the estate strategy hasn't been finalised yet, so it's not surprised the Assembly haven't seen it. As soon as it's finalised, I'll ensure that the Assembly get a copy of it. The London Policing Board will not have seen a copy of the estate strategy because it's not been finalised yet.
Well, we've been given to understand that it received a draft version of the strategy, which the Police and Crime Committee, which is the statutory body, has not.
I'm hardly surprised that the Mayor's Office of Policing and Crime may want to discuss drafts with colleagues in the London Policing Board. It's a Met Police document, though. It's a Met Police strategy. And when the Met Police, share the strategy with MOPAC, I wouldn't be surprised if the draft they want to involve the Policing Board, the Police and Crime Committee, in due course will see the estate strategy, but it's not been finalised yet.
Okay. And could I ask, do you recall when you were first made aware of the summons of the Assembly to attend a meeting today?
It was early this week.
Earlier this week. And could you explain why the committee didn't get a response from you until about 6 o'clock yesterday evening? Shows a certain contempt for the committee, if you don't mind.
It may have been late last week. I'm not sure. I can check and get back to you when I was told. In the last few days, I've been told. Again, I'm not sure why you got the letter at 6 p.m. last night.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I would just reiterate the point that it shows a breathtaking contempt for the committee that we issued a summons a fortnight ago, that you may have seen it either late last week or earlier this week, and it was only 6 o'clock, fewer than 24 hours before the meeting happened, that we heard that you weren't going to attend.
I think anybody watching this would think, why, it's a bit odd. A committee would issue a summons without actually speaking to me, see if I want to come along and speak to them, but that's by the by.
Well,
I can hear some chuntering, talking of contempt.
Okay, Assembly Member Giorgio.
Right, Mr. Mayor, I still didn't really hear a response to Assembly Member Roberts' question. Look, we're all friends here. Come on, you've got a packed public gallery. Come on, dish the gossip. Did the Chancellor kick you out of her office? Come on.
No, I wish it did. I mean, it's a great anecdote and a great story to tell. I mean, I said, I don't think I've ever been kicked out of anybody's office in my life. And I was trying to use the analogy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to your office as a result. I quite like the record of not being kicked out, so I'm not going there, definitely.
So, Mr. Mayor, I know you are an enormous fan of semantics. You weren't asked to leave. We use kicked out as a rough term. She didn't politely say, all right, Sadiq, come on, I've got my next meeting to get to. She did not ask you to leave her office.
I've often told people to leave because I've got next meeting coming.
I didn't ask what you do. I asked what the Chancellor did.
I don't know the exact words she used. But it was very fraternal, as it always is when I see the Chancellor.
Right. So now we've finally gotten to the bottom of it. She may have asked you to leave her office, but we'll move on. In terms of this story, did you or your team leak the fact that the Chancellor may or may have not have kicked you out of her office?
I can say with confidence that my team doesn't leak.
Good. Well, you might be the only Labour politician that doesn't, Mr. Mayor. Now, you said you have a possibly, maybe not post that meeting where you're kicked out of her office, but you have an interesting relationship with the Chancellor. Would you say you're friends?
If the impression is being created that I'm a forceful champion for London, I quite like that. So can we please make sure that is something that I agree with? If the impression's been left that I will be challenging to Labour chancellors and Conservative chancellors, I quite like that as well, because it's true. But I am friends with the Chancellor, but that doesn't mean that I'm not arguing for London. Even though members of the government, including the cabinet, are friends of mine, when it comes to London's needs and priorities, yeah, sure, I'll work with the government, whatever colour it is, when it suits London. But I'll be challenging and hold them to account and ask for things, even though they are friends, including the Chancellor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
At this point, I think we could do with a comfort break. Unless I saw, is there anybody else who's indicated on this issue? Okay, we will come back in.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Stand by. Okay, we are going to skip this comfort break, okay? So, by the magic. And thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Can anybody let me know how many people we got viewing at the moment? Bear with me a second while I get this back up and running. So yeah, if someone can let me know how many people we got watching at the moment, that'd be brilliant. $91. Thank you very much, Trevor. Okay, give me 2 seconds. We will be back. We are skipping the adjournment, all right? 79. Okay. Literally, I'm just queuing it up now, so bear with me. And if anyone wants to see the digital ID debate, there is a link in the description for later on. Okay, here we go. We're going back into it. Oops, if I press play, they're back, and we are just going to go over now. Thank you everyone for watching. Hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. Like I said, we're going to join them any minute. Okay, this is going to start again any second. Thank you very much, Trevor. Much appreciated. And everyone who's joined us today. We're just waiting for them to restart again. They won't be too long, okay?
The next question is businesses leaving London in the name of Assemblymember Wilson.
Can I thank the member for his question? Despite desperate, unpatriotic attempts by some to talk our capital city down, London remains one of the best places in the world in which to invest, start and scale up a business in. However, I want us to be even more appealing destination for businesses, and that's why, working with London councils, we launched the London Growth Plan earlier this year. And just 10 months since the growth plan was launched, it's already delivering results. We're boosting investment into our most innovative startups to support them to scale. We're rapidly upskilling our workforce, making sure that Londoners have the skills employers need. We're supporting thousands of businesses to thrive and grow through our Grow London and Funding London programmes. And we're bringing together researchers, investors and businesses to attract investment into frontier innovation sectors like life sciences. The impact is clear. London is already turning ambition into achievement, with growth and investment accelerating across our key sectors. I'm not sure how happy Reform are to hear about London's successes, but we're attracting nearly 3 times as many foreign direct investment projects as any other European city. And according to EY, we're leading in Europe for attracting overseas business for a second year in a row. America's biggest bank, JP Morgan Chase, has announced plans for a 3 million square foot landmark tower in Canary Wharf, and Visa is relocating its European headquarters here. This stands as testament to business confidence in London. London's ranked #1 in Europe and the world's #2 leading tech city, surpassing San Francisco, according to the latest Yen Smart Centres Index. We've just hosted the biggest life sciences week in London, with over 100 events attracting investors, scale-up and businesses from all over the world. Our position as Europe's life sciences powerhouse is clear, with £1.6 billion in venture capital investment into life science companies so far this year, more than Paris, Stockholm and Berlin combined. And surveys by the accountancy body ICAEW find that London businesses continue to report capital investment growth at an unprecedented pace, with Q3 2025 rates surpassing the city's historical average and expected to accelerate in the year ahead. And according to TripAdvisor, London is the #1 visitor destination in the world, great for our tourism and hospitality businesses. These results, Chair, are an endorsement of London's continued success and of London's growth plan's vision to accelerate growth and further cement the capital status as a world-leading centre for investment, innovation, business and culture.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for some of the examples you mentioned there, which I'll pick up on, I'm sure, in due course. But I think, first, it's important to say I do welcome any success in London, any success in Britain, and I think we all should do that. But it's also crucial to recognise and understand the scale of a very real problem that we do have with businesses of all sizes struggling, and some of those, as a result, leaving London. We have a long and growing list of major companies either delisting or moving their primary listing from London Stock Exchange, or not progressing plans for an IPO in London. In the last few months alone, companies like Diversified Energy, AstraZeneca, Ports Hill Partners, Wise plc, Cobalt, Indivior, Just Eat and Ashtead have all made those decisions since the general election last year. But moving to individuals and SMEs, which are really the lifeblood of the economy, London is losing more high net worth individuals than any other Western city. And according to evidence from Rathbones, 12% of SME leaders are either actively planning to relocate their business themselves or both from the UK. Obviously, that has a huge effect on London. Similarly, surveys from Handelsbanken suggest a staggering 38% of SME owners planning or contemplating leaving the UK. Why do you think they're doing that?
Well, Chair, I'm glad he mentioned that in his opening answer before his question, the successes of our great city. I don't want any business to leave London. Over the last 8 years, I've tried to explain, notwithstanding the consequences of Brexit, why London is the greatest city in the world to start a business, scale up a business and do business. I've got a list.
Perhaps, Mr. Mayor, perhaps I can help you out. Those very same surveys are giving very clear evidence that the overwhelming driver of that exodus is the rising tax burden compared to better incentives in other countries. And we see the consequences of this in unemployment, which really matters to everybody across the country and here in London. We have unemployment up in every month since Rachel Reeves' first disastrous budget. The last time I spoke on this, I quoted from The Guardian. Now, admittedly, that's not a source I regularly go to, but I quoted from The Guardian today. I'd like to ask you, do you agree, again, not a likely source for me, but one I'm sure you're familiar with, the left-leaning Resolution Foundation, do you agree with their analysis that they're firmly blaming that budget from last year, particularly the national insurance rise, for rising unemployment and, in particular, the impact on younger workers?
Chair, I mean, if I could even get a fraction of the time the members got in terms of the time answering the question. So I'm really proud that this government has negotiated a trade deal which will lead to jobs and is pro-business with the USA with
Trade
India,
deal we couldn't do if we were still a member of the European Union.
Yes, we could. Yes, we could. With the United States of America, with India, with the European Union, and with South Korea. By the way, even with these trade deals, the benefits are far less than being members of the European Union. I'm really pleased. We've seen again and again examples of not just interest rates coming down. I'll have to wait and see today what happens in terms of a further cut in interest rates. I think there's been 5 cuts since Rachel Reeves became Chancellor, but also inflation coming down as well. But also, whether it's resident, he prayed in aid, The Guardian, I'll pray in aid, residence consultancy, #1 best city in the world, TripAdvisor, top travel destination, SeatPick, capital of music in the world, resident consultancy, most prosperous city in the world, Dreams OD Geo, most searched for holiday destination in the world. Just some examples.
Okay,
Objectively,
thank you for that. Can I pick up on an example you said in your opening statement? You mentioned hospitality, which is in an absolute freefall thanks to this government. In London alone, 55 pubs closing last year, similar number projected to close this year. On top of last year's national insurance hike, which has been catastrophic, we now have the crippling effect of the business rates review. Figures from UK Hospitality confirm that the average pub in 27-28 will be paying $4,500 more in business rates. 28-29, $7,000 more. The average hotel, $65,000 more in 27-28 and $111,300 more in 28-29. Do you agree with former Labour donor Sacha Lord when he says that hospitality has been thrown to the wolves by Labour and he bitterly regrets having tweeted that Labour would be the party of business and growth?
I think the hospitality sector has had a rotten 6 years since the pandemic. It's been just awful for those in hospitality, those who work in hospitality, and those who run businesses as well. This didn't just happen in the last year. And by the way, one of the biggest factors hospitality give for staff shortages is a consequence of the extreme hard Brexit deal done.
It's not about staff shortages, it's about the cost of employing them, Mr Mayor. I'm conscious of the time, so I would just like to finish. We've seen, and we can see every day, Labour's economic record, it's toxic for major investment, it's toxic for SMEs, it's toxic for hospitality. In reference to the last exchange, the last question, Rachel Reeves, whether she threw you out of her office or not. It shouldn't be up to Rachel Reeves to throw anyone out of her office. What we need is a general election so the country as a whole can throw Rachel Reeves out of office. Thank you.
No, OK, fine. Assembly Member Best.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do want to return to London's hospitality industry and nighttime economy. You've got to do your bit, and I agree with you on that level that it isn't just the last year which has driven these businesses to the brink. But the average business rate increase across the hospitality industry is so severe. The impact as well with dealing with that on top of the national insurance rise is unbearable for these businesses. And I genuinely think some sort of mistake has been calculated in the civil service here on how much this will impact businesses. Will you lobby for those businesses across London?
I mean, the cost of doing business in this sector is huge, and I recognise that. I've also been on record as saying some of the policies, not just of this government, the previous government, often when it comes to business rates relief, doesn't do us justice because of the rateable value and the cost, and before you get relief and so forth. I know businesses I've spoken to in retail are also struggling because of the cost of doing business. I can confirm not only have I been lobbying for this, I'll carry on lobbying in terms of the particular needs of businesses in London, the additional overheads there are in London, and the lack of support there is in terms of relief because of rateable values and so forth in London as well.
I think when we look at trying to make the business rates a fair playing field, some people will be concerned that what I think effectively Labour stated they wanted to do was even the playing field, especially target some of those big boys that own big warehouses. That hasn't come through in terms of the average rate. So I hope that you'll be willing to have a look at that. And in terms of working on the business rates relief and trying to get that to the maximum discount, I hope you'll do that. Will you be meeting with the UK hospitality industry and other industry leaders to see what asks they want from you?
Yeah, we speak to them all the time, and I speak to them all the time as well. They do a great job in advocating for their members I think none of the points she's made in terms of the cost of doing business are points that we're not aware of, but I'm more than happy to always receive representations and advocate on behalf of this really important sector. It is a really important sector for us.
Thanks. So could I just take that as your door is open for further meetings in the next couple of weeks or so, maybe after Christmas?
We meet the chair and we speak to the chief and chief exec all the time, and members as well, and she'll be aware of hopefully, and they'll say the same to her, the great relationship they have in relation to not just this issue in terms of the cost of doing business, but other issues as well.
Okay, Assembly Member Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Hello again. I mean, it's clearly not just at Christmas, but all year long that Reform are taking the opportunity to talk down London. But I would expect for them to at least acknowledge the disastrous impact Brexit has had on our economy. Yet, despite that, they're pleased with that, actually. But yet, despite the disastrous impact of Brexit and the pandemic, London continues to outperform the rest of the country, but not just that. But we see that 13% of the UK's population is in London, but we're still producing 24% of the UK's economic output and delivering 25% of the UK's tax revenues and 36% of its exports. We could go on and on about stats about how wonderful London is, but you and I know that. I'm not sure everyone else in the chamber would acknowledge it. But just last night, I was at the opening of Shangri-La restaurant in Brunswick Park, absolutely spectacular, opened by a man whose father ran a restaurant in Brick Lane, one of these real London stories. We saw many of our high streets suffer under 14 years of the Conservative government. However, a recent report from Centre for Cities has shown that outer London high streets are performing more strongly than the national average. A few weeks ago, I was fortunate to visit the GROW partnership, which is funded by London and Partners, which is one example of how you are taking London's small businesses very seriously. How else are you supporting London's small businesses as mayor?
Well, look, can I just deal with the various points she raised in her question, which is, look, I'm more than happy, as we just heard from Senator Best, to take on board concerns businesses have and to try and address them. But when I hear people taking great joy in talking down our capital city, as some people do, it angers me and it upsets me, because I think it's unpatriotic, particularly when it's not borne out by the facts. I could give you a list of all the league tables where London is flying, not just in terms of Europe, but in terms of the globe, whether it's foreign direct investment, whether it's job creation, and other metrics we can use. Now, when I start listing the various successes, I'm asked not to take up time because they want to make this, anti-London point. But you're right in terms of how well we are doing. I'm not complacent. We can and must do better, which is why London and Partners, some voted against London and Partners. They want to defund London and Partners. London and Partners, and they say absolutely with great joy. When they discover it was Boris Johnson that founded it, they'll do a U-turn, I'm sure, in relation to this. But one of the things London and Partners has done is set up Grow London Local. And this is helping small businesses who want to set up, who want to get investment, capital, how they expand, and so forth. It's a one-stop shop for those small businesses. There's separately Grow London Global, which supports businesses expand overseas as well, so incredibly important. City Hall initiatives have helped with the private sector create more than 330,000 jobs over the last 9 years. They may want to abolish London and Partners and take away the support from businesses in London. I'm not going to do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, let's move on to a newer question. Are car clubs in London in the name of Assembly Member Baker?
Can I thank the member for her question? Zipcar delivered a significant portion of car club availability in London, and I'm very sorry to hear that it's proposing to seize its UK operations. I know this will have a big impact on many residents and businesses across London who have relied on Zipcar for cars and vans and van trips. TfL are working to understand how we can reduce the impact this will have. I recognise the important role car clubs play in providing convenient access for journeys which can't easily be made by public transport, walking and cycling. That's why I'm considering opportunities to collaborate with boroughs to address the short-term challenges of Zipcar leaving the UK's club market, including London, and longer-term solutions to support the sector. My Deputy Mayor for Transport, Seb Dance, and other Deputy Mayors have met with Zipcar and other operators to discuss this, and officers have also been meeting with key stakeholders, including Collaborative Mobility UK and the boroughs, to explore opportunities. I welcome the recent open letter calling for coordinated action between the GLA and London boroughs, and I'm looking at this as a matter of urgency. As the first step, I'll be setting up a further roundtable for early 2026 with boroughs to discuss key action needed to support the industry more broadly. While TfL has limited direct influence in the delivery of car clubs, it continues to support them in a variety of ways. This includes the promotion of car club offers it carried out through the ULEZ scrappage scheme, providing best practice for borough procurement of car club services, and highlighting car clubs as an alternative model to private car ownership. TfL will also introduce a 100% discount for electric back-to-base car club vehicles based in the congestion charge zone. Through borough local implementation plans, TfL provides funding directly to boroughs for car club measures through the installation of dedicated parking bays. TfL also included car clubs in its electric vehicle infrastructure strategy, which identifies car clubs as a key user group, and it continues to support London councils to develop their curbside management toolkit for boroughs, including on-street space for car clubs.
Thanks very much for that, Mr. Mayor. And thank you for acknowledging the impact that this is going to have, the potential withdrawal of Zipcar on the 1st of January, the potential impact on Londoners, on small charities, also public bodies, councils and others who do rely on car clubs and don't know how they're going to make certain essential journeys if and when Zipcar ceases to exist in London on the 1st of January. Now, I've been working on this subject for quite a while, and while I appreciate the measures that you've set out in your initial answer, there's no doubt that there remains a large number of barriers to operators running a successful model of car clubs in London. But to my mind, these seem to stem from one particular issue, that TfL, Transport for London, do not accept that a car club model where Londoners can use a car for occasional journeys and therefore don't need to own a car and therefore don't make as many car journeys, they do not accept that that is valid, and therefore they are acting as a blocker through their neglect of this policy area, because a lot of the things you outline are either haven't been done for a very long time or are questionable, because we questioned some of that in our Transport Committee emergency meeting yesterday, or make no impact at all. So as a supporter of car clubs, what can you do to unblock TfL acting as a blocker to successful car clubs in London?
Firstly, I don't accept that. If that's right, what's the reason they've left Brussels?
So all I can talk about, since I'm a London Assembly member, is the work I've done on car clubs in London extensively over the last year and a half that say there are a whole range of barriers in London, and I've now questioned Transport for London twice in Transport Committee, and both times their answers have indicated that they do not believe that this is a successful model. And I hear that they have not engaged. I understand that the last thing I heard, that TfL had not proactively engaged with either boroughs or operators since Zipcar's announcement of withdrawal. Now, that blows my mind, to be perfectly honest. So I do accept that there are a whole load of issues, but on a London basis, Transport for London are not doing what they can to support this model.
Let me be quite clear. I push back at the assertion that TfL are blockers when it comes to car clubs. Now, she's made the assertion. It's fair to stand it up. I don't accept that.
Okay, well, then you're then you're going against our Transport Committee report. I was told yesterday in Transport Committee that only one of the recommendations had been turned down, but in fact all three of the recommendations, no action had been taken. No proactive action has been taken this year at all by Transport for London on car clubs. I'm afraid that's just a fact. There's been no awareness raising since ULEZ, which was very, very minimal. This is the reality of it. And so I'd like to ask you another specific issue. So from the Transport Committee report from earlier this year, we referenced a patchwork approach to car clubs where different boroughs are effectively having to make their own arrangements with operators, therefore multiplying the amount of work that it takes to have a successful car club model, and including the negotiation of borough contracts. Now, for me, this is very odd, considering TfL are very interested in a framework for procurement for shared bikes, but they're not interested in insisting on shared procurement for car clubs. So considering this is very urgent, we're about to lose 90% of our provision of car clubs, will you ask TfL to step in urgently, not in January, now, and help boroughs and operators coordinate procurement?
So my deputy mayors and TfL have met with Zipcar in the last few days and have set up meetings with boroughs to take place pretty swiftly, as I said, in early 2026. Zipcar at the moment aren't taking any further bookings from January 2026. We work closely with the boroughs. It's the boroughs whose road space is often required for these car clubs to operate in. We speak regularly with the boroughs. I can check the last time we spoke to the boroughs in relation to this. The members moved away from saying TfL is a blocker to now asserting TfL is not being proactive, which is different from saying TfL are blockers. I'm happy to take away the point about TfL not being proactive in relation to this to see what more TfL can do to be proactive. I do not accept TfL are blockers.
Okay, well, I've been working on this a long time. You can twist my words if you wish, but by their neglect of the policy area, they are acting as a blocker. That is what I say, and I stand by it. I'm really disappointed to hear that you won't take further action on this, because there are Londoners who are in genuine need, and a bunch of them are going to go out and buy cars, unfortunately, and that is not good when they don't need them. Back to you, Chair.
Well, I'm really surprised, Chair, that the member's not given full justice to those Londoners who rely upon car clubs by making petty points about TfL being blockers. I commend those Londoners who decide to use car clubs rather than be car owners. Often they've not got public transport alternatives like those in central London and inner London have. That's why it's so important. Those businesses, small businesses who rely upon car clubs are really important in this conversation. I'm surprised she's not mentioned those either. It's because of those Londoners, those businesses, we've worked incredibly hard with Zipcar, meeting with them. This is a private company, but we've worked really hard to meet with them to address any particular issues they may have. Zipcar have left the rest of the country some time ago. London is the only city in the UK they operate in. It's also the only country in Europe they operated. As part of the assertions made by the member, I'm surprised she doesn't realise that Zipcar left Brussels, left Barcelona and left Paris some years ago, but stayed in London because this mayor believes in car clubs. And we'll be speaking to all three of these private companies that operate in London because I can see their importance. It's really important, Chair, that when you have a public forum, you use facts rather than casting aspersions about TfL's willingness to work really hard with car clubs, who both TfL and I believe are an important part of the London transport story.
Assembly Member Boff.
I thank the member for raising this issue, but I think she's mistaken that the blocker is actually the mayor himself. In your London plan, the car club spaces have to compete with the allocation for residential parking spaces in any new development, rather than having additional allocation. Can you undertake in the new plan to rectify that situation and allow car club spaces to be in addition to the allocation, parking allocation for new developments?
I'm really surprised the member's not aware about the London Borough's commitment towards the London plan and the previous plan. They responded to the previous plan and their points were taken on board. I'd be criticised for not listening to the concerns of London boroughs when it comes to drafting London plans. Now I'm being asked to go against what London boroughs want to do. London boroughs have tried incredibly hard to work with TfL in relation to car clubs. We're going to carry on making sure that the new London plan supports the provision of alternatives to private car ownership where possible, and that includes working with not just private companies that provide car club facilities, but also the boroughs as well.
Assembly Member Russell.
Just very briefly, inner central and inner London boroughs have very low car ownership levels, about 30 or 40%. Do you agree that car share services enable these very low levels of car ownership?
Yeah, car clubs have been transformative in terms of people making the choice not to be a private car owner, but to use car clubs, and that's why we worked really hard with Zipcar as a private company to try and keep them in London.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chairman, can I
Assembly
just...
Member Hall.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment. It's really good when Labour Assembly members ask proper questions of the Mayor. Clearly he doesn't like it, and of course he's surprised again. Whenever the Mayor is surprised, it means he's getting a question he doesn't like. Fair enough.
Nice try, Baroness.
I think we
Fair
got
enough.
the gist.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You can come back
Thank
if
you.
you want, Mr.
There's no
Mayor.
time left for them.
Are you fine?
There's no time. They've run out of time.
Well, you can address
She's not
me.
quite a baroness
you can
like you are,
address
Lord.
me. You can address me.
Yeah.
Sorry?
What's the question?
If you just want to say something, then...
Not at all, not really.
OK, all right then, fine. Well, look, OK, right, let's get back on the next question after that, which is... So we're missing some questions, Mr Mayor. They've been withdrawn. We're now moving to the question in the name of Assembly Member Irani, COVID Inquiry Report Phase 2.
I thank the member for his question. The COVID-19 pandemic was an unprecedented crisis that continues to affect Londoners, with many still feeling the repercussions on their health, jobs, relationships and education. This public inquiry is of vital importance for those who lost friends and relatives in the pandemic to get answers, and for London as a city, as well as to the whole country to improve our resilience to future emergencies. I was pleased to give evidence to Phase 2 of the inquiry and welcome its report. The Phase 2 recommendations are directed almost entirely at central government. Nevertheless, the London Resilience Unit and my health officers are reviewing the recommendations for any learning that may be relevant to improve London's partnership preparation and response to future emergencies. Local learning from COVID-19 has already been incorporated into London's response processes. In November 23, the London Resilience Forum approved a disease-agnostic pandemic response framework that incorporated early learning from the pandemic. This framework sets out the triggers, roles, responsibilities and actions of all the relevant partners to respond during a pandemic. From 15th of September to 5th of November this year, the GLA participated with other key partners in a cross-government pandemic planning exercise called Exercise Pegasus. The exercise was intended to test decision-making and preparedness to respond, collaborate and communicate during a pandemic caused by novel infection. The government's pandemic framework has not been updated since COVID-19. This will happen once the learnings from the exercise have been identified. This means that the exercise wasn't as useful as it could have been to help with local planning. However, London took as much benefit as it could from the exercise, and the London Pandemic Working Group will be considering further exercising that is better suited to London. We're gathering the learning so far from the exercise, and when we receive the National Debrief Report, we'll incorporate its lessons into our resilience and response processes as usual.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad to hear that we are taking the learnings from a London perspective for future as well. But one of the things that the inquiry also found was that ministers and senior officials undermined public confidence by failing to adhere to their own rules. In fact, it was a major issue here also at the London Assembly as it later unravelled. What reflections do you have on the importance of maintaining integrity in public office?
Well, I was hoping Lord Bailey maybe had to give us a personal experience of this issue. I'm a believer in the Noland standards in public life. He'll be aware that one of the reasons why I suspect support dissipated from a former Prime Minister was because his clear sense of law breaking. I think lawmakers definitely shouldn't be law breakers. And that had a huge impact on not just public's confidence in the previous government, but when you speak to bereaved families and families who couldn't attend funerals, families who couldn't celebrate weddings, young people who were affected in terms of following the social distancing rules, the impact on them, and then you compare and contrast how lawmakers are breaking the law is a real issue, and it is also of huge concern to me. When I read the report, the conclusions that had lockdown begun a week earlier, and I was calling for it, 23,000 fewer people may have died. Now just think about that. There are 23,000 families grieving the loss of a loved one, which may not have been at the position had politicians heeded the advice from experts and advisors.
Thank you, and I hear that point loudly in the constituency I represent across Brent. Two areas in particular, Alperton and Churchend, were severely impacted in that first phase of the pandemic. But the pandemic also led to a rise in vaccine scepticism. And in London, we have the lowest childhood vaccination rates in the country. What message do you have for people in public office who peddle irresponsible anti-vax disinformation?
There's a phrase which I wasn't aware of until the pandemic began called vaccine hesitancy. These are people who are hesitant about taking the vaccine, and some of them were for understandable reasons. In their country of origin, they may have seen pharmaceuticals acting inappropriately when it comes to testing pharmaceuticals. But also some of them on social media were seeing people, amplifying anti-vax messages, a lot of them lies, and they started believing that. And so we had to spend a lot of time trying to address the myths and, frankly speaking, the misinformation to give people the confidence to have the vaccines. Look, vaccines have saved lives for decades, and they will save lives going forward as well. In terms of, this particular pandemic, there's no doubt it saved lives. And so it is really important we address the issue of disinformation. I'm a firm believer in not engaging with conspiracy theories because you give them the oxygen of publicity. But there's a role to play for respected message carriers to educate in a non-patronising way and to give people confidence about the importance of vaccines. They are lifesavers.
Again, the NHS is under huge pressure this winter, and flu cases have started at a record high this winter. Data released actually just moments ago have shown that the rise in London is not as steep as they expected. But the NHS must stay on high alert because in the past you have seen waves come forward in future months. And with this being in the news, people have been obviously impacted by it, and it's in a lot of people's minds. Pharmacies are now actually reporting that the amount of people taking up the vaccine in the lead up to Christmas is far higher than it was or usually is this time in usual years. So can you ensure that your public health team is working with the sector to ensure that London doesn't run out of vaccines and has what we need?
Yeah, great question. My advice to any Londoner and anybody across the country who's eligible for a flu vaccine is please take it. I took mine a few weeks ago. And it's a game changer in terms of the impact when you're a target for the flu. And it's really important that people who are eligible for the vaccine receive it. My understanding from the briefing I received recently from my public health advisor and the NHS was we've had the peak flu this year earlier than is otherwise the case, which is good in a way because we won't see, hopefully, in January issues in the NHS when it comes to capacity as inpatients. So fingers crossed, it's good news for us that the peak has come earlier. But he's spot on in terms of keeping an eye in terms of vaccine availability. The good news is so far we've got good coverage in London. And by the way, this is a nice problem to have, the fact that people have been more keen to get the vaccine as well. I've not checked in the last 2 weeks, but I'll check after this meeting to make sure we've still got coverage. What we can do is sometimes get vaccines from across the country. In London, if there's a particular need for that. Let me follow that up. I'll make sure we've got the confidence to Londoners that pharmacies, GP practices and others can provide the vaccine.
Thank you, Chair.
Let's move to the next question. I think is in the name of Assembly Member Mohima concerning emergency accommodation and support for domestic abuse survivors.
Yeah, can I thank the member for this question, particularly this time of year as well. Across the UK, an estimated 3.8 million adults experienced domestic abuse last year, and in London there were more than 90,000 cases recorded by the police in the year to August alone. That's why I'm proud to be working with Airbnb and Women's Aid on this new and innovative pilot. The scheme will provide domestic abuse survivors and their families with free emergency accommodation and specialist support to help them recover and move forward with their lives. This initiative will work alongside our public health approach to tackling violence against women and girls, which champions working in partnership across all sectors, including with businesses and charities. It involves providing temporary accommodation and therefore is outside the scope of the funding conditions the Department of MHCLG has attached to the Domestic Abuse Safe Accommodation Programme, DASA. The data and insights from this pilot will inform the Domestic Abuse Safe Accommodation Programme by increasing our understanding of the demand for this type of accommodation, our understanding of who needs it, and help us to identify gaps in existing support arrangements. This is an important initiative that will assist us in understanding the needs of underserved communities with lower level support needs. Through the wider DASA programme, we've invested £54 million, which has helped over 40,000 survivors of domestic abuse since it launched in 2021. However, I recognise that more is needed, particularly of this type of emergency accommodation and wraparound support. And this is precisely why we've partnered with Airbnb and provided additional funding to support this pilot. I'm committed to continuing to work with partners to explore innovative solutions to ensure that survivors can access the care and support they need, while at the same time working with the Met Police, criminal justice partners and the government to go after the perpetrators of these heinous crimes.
Thank you, Mayor Khan. Thank you for that answer. So this is something which has been really close, a particular issue that's been very close to my heart before I joined the Assembly, and I was really proud previously to work with the trade union around amendments for survivors of domestic abuse in their workplaces. So I think it's obviously a welcome step that the £54 million that has been committed is there and it's in place. And, you know, I commend, I don't normally, but I commend Airbnb on this occasion for that support that they're providing in this really difficult period to provide that temporary accommodation and that emergency accommodation, rather. We obviously know that the issue, one of the issues is the chronic shortage of refuge space for those that are fleeing abuse. So in terms of longer term accommodation, what is being provided? Because I think one of the particular issues is, obviously this issue sits across many areas. It's a housing issue, but it's also a policing issue and falls under the remit of MOPAC, as the Commissioner of the Accommodation. But women who are primarily the victims of domestic abuse, they need to be flagged as having been a victim of domestic abuse. How are we making sure that actually it's standalone accommodation without having to re-victimise those survivors of domestic abuse?
Yeah, can I just thank the member for a question? Like I said, this time of year particularly important. So the good news is she's the point she was concerned about, which is, you know, one department, you know, it'd been more than one department issue. I think it's been addressed this week by the government's Violence Against Women and Girls strategy. I was with the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, but also the Home Office Minister, Jess Phillips, this week. And one of the great pieces of announcements they made this week is in every GP practice, and if you will know from a previous life, often a victim or survivor goes to the police after dozens of incidents where they've been the victim of abuse. Often they go to health practitioner much sooner. So a GP will now have somebody they can call upon to provide the support, which is so important in terms of help that victims and survivors need. One of them is accommodation, which is incredibly important. So the bad news is, at the moment, the provision of accommodation does not meet the demand. What we're doing from City Hall with our limited funds is not, in addition to the DASA stuff, we are funding, you know, led by and for organisations, sums of money per year for the next few years for them to make sure they can help this underserved community with the right accommodation. And she will know as well, led by and for services tend to be better used by the vulnerable individuals we're talking about, women we are talking about as well. We're separately considering what further commission options we can have working with the government because they've got the funding. But also, I do commend Airbnb because we've got to think about innovative ways to find the accommodation. And she will know from her experience, it's those first few days and first few weeks that are so crucial. The other point to make finally is we've got to make sure the police go after the bad guys. So why do they keep the home and the woman and kids move away? And so using more injunctive powers, more police powers to make sure the perpetrator, prosecutions are brought, you know, and they're taking out the accommodation, so the woman and the child can stay in the home if it's possible and if it's safe.
Thank you for that. I also wanted to follow up on the report that the Housing Committee has published around housing for women leaving prison. And I think you have responded to that. I was not able to attend Housing Committee yesterday, but my colleague, Assembly Member Boff, asked the Deputy Mayor about this particular topic. So one of the things that, I mean, I suppose it's as well understood, but one of the things that we learned and had reaffirmed on our visit to Bronzefield Prison, where the majority of women leaving prison, the majority of women who were incarcerated from London
The majority of them are at Bronzefield Prison. When they, who are overwhelmingly survivors of domestic abuse, it was just kind of through the whole system. There were comments from members of staff who were very, very confused about why some of those women were in the prison system rather than receiving support in a more social setting and had been supported in the community. But many of those women are returning to prison. They plan to commit a crime on a Friday when they're released so that they can come back on a Monday because there is no other safe place for them to go. So I just wanted to ask you, perhaps in conversation with the Deputy Mayor at a future date, just kind of what steps are being taken to address the gap, to fill the secure accommodation gap, specifically for women leaving prison. Because I know we've had lots of conversation at Housing Committee about the broader, really welcome initiatives that are being taken. But in terms of on a borough-by-borough basis or across London, a relatively small cohort of women leaving prison would be an absolute game changer. And those conversations with MOJ, I think that's missing from the conversation.
Yeah, can I say to the member, I mean, this is a really good example of where the work of the Assembly and the committee has moved mayoral policy. I remember it was about a year or 2 years ago when I think members of the Assembly were telling their stories about, I think the Deputy Mayor was on one of the visits, where you had women prisoners saying that actually when they leave prison they may recommit an offence because they've got decent accommodation in Bronzefield. That we really started looking at this, even though it wasn't our statutory responsibility, but it's affecting Londoners. And that's why I was so pleased when Lord Timpson agreed to join the House of Lords and bearing in mind his expertise in penal reform. And that family is wonderful in terms of what Timpson do in terms of employing people with the conviction. And you sort of had confidence that because of Lord Timpson's values, there'd be a decent review. And the work that they've done in this area is already making a difference. I think, many women who are in prison really shouldn't be in prison. Often they're acquisitive crime to support kids. Often they're fleeing domestic abuse, domestic violence. And so that's a really important part of the work we're involved in now, talking to the MOJ. The other thing we can add value on is something she referred to, which is the sort of postcode lottery if you go to Council A versus Council B or Council C. Could be because Council A has more accommodation than Council C, but often it's poor quality officer advice, poor quality officer information. So one of the things we can do, and we are doing with a small sum of money in the grand scheme of things, is accreditation to train up officers to understand the support that is available and how they can help these vulnerable women, often with children and so forth. And the final point I'm making, and please don't think this is patronising, often it's intergenerational. So a woman who's in prison, often her mum was in prison. And if we can break that cycle by investing, it's not just great for that family's lack of misery, lack of the next generation's misery, it saves the taxpayer money as well. In terms of the average cost of keeping somebody in prison is, I think, $44,000 a year from memory. Think about how we could use that money sensibly outside of prison and make that individual, somebody who contributes to society, rather than being, this inverted commas burden.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I don't take that to be patronising at all. Obviously, it is an intergenerational issue, but one of the things that we again had reaffirmed by staff and volunteers at the prison from top to bottom was the fact that actually of those women that were in prison, the majority were there on remand and they lost their families. Their children were taken into care because they were away for 3 months or more. They lost their social tenancies, they lost their jobs, and it began a cycle. And so I really do think that a specific intervention, perhaps partnership with housing associations, would be really welcome. Lambeth are doing that really well. They are really aware and putting in place the Homelessness Reduction Act for these women, and they have significantly reduced recidivism, which is different compared to men who are leaving prison, and that's also a really welcome piece of work. But my final question, I do apologise to my Chief Whip. I wanted to just really pick up on some work that we had done previously when I was chairing the Housing Committee a couple of years ago around working with local authorities to develop standards. So you have touched on that and about breaking that intergenerational cycle. That's the consistency of service provision across London and making sure that housing officers across the capital's 32 boroughs really understand legal entitlements to housing and in particular in relation to domestic abuse. And just wondering if it's not possible at this meeting to just come back to me and those who are interested on how that's going to be done in conjunction with this domestic abuse project that's being funded.
No, again, another important question. So firstly, can I also commend Lambeth Council with that multi-agency approach, which is, I'm worried about Chief Whip might tell me off, so I'm looking at the member rather than the Chief Whip. The multi-agency approach in relation to helping women and survivors. Just to reassure her, the pilot we're doing with Airbnb and Women's Aid does include providing advice on housing and securing longer-term accommodation. The sort of jargon is wraparound care, but we've made sure there's wraparound care as well because it's really important.
Will the Assembly agree to suspend Standing Orders 2.9b in order to allow the remaining business on the agenda to be completed? Thank you. Let's move on to the next question then. In the name of Assembly Member Russell, inconsistent support for disabled people travelling on the TfL network.
Can I thank the member for her question? Improving the accessibility of the transport network is a key priority for both myself and TfL. And I'm proud we've made significant progress in recent years, with the caveat there's much more to be done. TfL offers a turn-up-and-go staff assistance service on the Tube, London Overground and Elizabeth line. Following a successful trial, Access DLR, a free travel assistance service for anyone aged 18 or older who needs extra support in the DLR, that was also recently made permanent. If for any reason TfL is not able to offer this assistance to customers or step-free access is unavailable, TfL staff will help customer plan an alternative step-free journey to their destination. All TfL frontline staff receive training on what to do in these situations, and the policy is clear. When there isn't a reasonable alternative route using public transport, or the customer doesn't feel able to make the alternative journey, station staff will book a complimentary accessible taxi for the customer. Customers don't need to pay for these taxis themselves or claim the cost back later. If there are instances where customers have been advised otherwise, TfL will want to be made aware of these so they can ensure it doesn't happen again. TfL regularly updates staff on the customer taxi policy and the process to follow for booking. Arriva Rail London, GTS Rail and Keolis Amy, which operate the London Overground, Elizabeth line and the DLR respectively on TfL's behalf, do the same. TfL is also undertaking a review of its travel assistance services. This is a pan-TfL review with oversight from a member of TfL's Independent Disability Advisory Group. The findings will be published in 2026. More broadly, TfL and I will continue to work hard to make the network more accessible and open to all. Since I became Mayor, the number of step-free stations on the Tube network has increased from a quarter over a third. In addition, I'm pleased our investment and new technology means that a third of lifts on TfL's transport network now automatically report when they're out of service, with real-time updates sent to journey planning tools to minimise the chance that people need to change their plans midway through a journey. TfL will continue to roll out this technology until all lifts on the network are self-reporting. Despite these significant improvements to accessible transport in London, I recognise that more must be done to make London's transport network truly accessible and inclusive, and I'll continue to work with TfL and the member to achieve this.
Thank you. And there is absolutely no doubt that TfL is doing an awful lot of work to try and improve the accessibility of the system for disabled people. I'm raising one particular case of a constituent who actually travelled here from City Hall to home in Herne Hill a couple of months ago, and their journey ended up involving taxis between 3 stations, 3 different cabs, a 45-minute journey that ended up taking 4.5 hours. TfL ended up paying £132, but if the cab had been booked from Royal Victoria, where he started, back to his home in Herne Hill, it would have just been £68. Now, during this extended trip, TfL staff seemed a bit unclear about what options they are authorised to provide, and you were very clear in your opening that it is possible to book a taxi. Now, to be clear, the constituent doesn't want to travel by taxi. They want to travel on a step-free public transport network independently. But just briefly, are you aware that disabled Londoners can have such challenging journeys on the network?
Yeah, I'm aware. Just to put on record my thanks to the member for organising for TfL colleagues to accompany her constituent so they could understand the challenges they face. Just to let her know, not just as Mayor, but when I was the Transport Minister, I also undertook journeys with people in wheelchairs so I could understand some of the challenges faced by people across the country, including London. We've got to make sure as much of public transport is for all the public. That means making it accessible. I'm more than happy to go and look at individual examples if she wants me to.
That's great. This constituent has one idea that might have helped in the situation that he was in, which is that TfL could produce for disabled people to carry just a card that explains that it is possible to book a taxi, and that so that rather than feeling like a nuisance and like you're pressing for particular support, that happens automatically. Would you be up for looking into that?
More than happy. So just explain to them about the moment, of course, the TfL website and TfL staff are trained. This to me seems like a really cost-effective way. And if it's a TfL product, I say this in a generous way, no member of staff will think that it's been made up by the individual to try and get away with not paying a fare, a taxi fare. So let me take that away and work with her to get the wording right and stuff.
Thank you very much.
At this point, can I welcome the members of the Potter House Church in Romford? I think you've joined us. Oh, yeah. Well, you're welcome to our proceedings. OK, let's move on to a question in the name of Assembly Member Polanski, government engagement with the GLA.
Can I thank the member for his question? I meet with ministers regularly, and in those meetings it's been clear there is a significant positive change in approach to London since the general election. This government recognises the important role that London plays in delivering growth nationally and the challenges that families across London are facing due to the inheritance from the previous government, a flatlining economy, starved investment, a black hole in public finances and a cost of living crisis. Indeed, the previous government only repeatedly talked London down, like the opposition continues to do, but they actually tried to level down London in their policy decisions and funding allocations. We've secured important wins for London with the current government, including the commitment to extend the DLR to Thamesmead, which will help create 10,000 new jobs and unlock 25,000 new homes, something I campaigned for since 2018. The government's also agreed to give new powers to London to raise a tourism levy, which will directly support our economic growth, something I've been asking for since 2016. And crucially, he'll be pleased, I know, about the decision to scrap the two-child benefit cap, which I voted against and voted against the Labour whip as an MP in 2015 and have campaigned against for years, which will have a significant impact across London, with more than 260,000 children set to benefit and 40,000 children being lifted out of poverty overnight. Additionally, we've persuaded the government to give London an integrated settlement, which means we'll have a more financial stability and flexibility across a full range of policies over a number of years. And these announcements build on the other support we've got from this government, new planning reforms to accelerate development and tackle London's acute housing shortage, which I know he's campaigned for, recent confirmation that London will have 2 new towns in Enfield and Thamesmead, an additional £320 million for house building through the City Hall Developer Investment Fund, £11.7 billion for affordable housing, the biggest and longest settlement in the GLA history, support for Oxford Street Mayoral Development Corporation, the largest multi-year funding deal settlement for TfL, and a new pilot licensing policy for London as well.
Thank you very much. And I do support the scrapping of the two-child benefit cap. I'm still concerned about the overall welfare cap. We'll talk about that another day. There's not been a Minister for London since July 2024. Do you know if there's a plan to replace that position, or is that position scrapped? Sorry,
Chair, but I see the Lord Duval in his seat, who may be applying for that job if it's available. But I'm not sure.
Will you be lobbying? Do you think it's an important position?
I've not given it much thought.
Okay.
If I'm perfectly frank.
Is there a different relationship that you have with the London, with the cabinet, than when you had that minister? Because presumably you would go to that minister for a issue around London, or do you always go direct to the portfolio minister?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when there was a Conservative government, the Minister for London was useful as a shop steward for London, if you like, or somebody who could go to try and get blockages unblocked. So in addition to writing directly to, for example, the Chancellor, I'd copy the Minister for London, even though there may have been a junior minister, because they could then try and get the message also to the relevant member of government. I say in a respectful way, there is no need at the moment for a middle man or woman, because we've got direct access to the government. And also, which is an important game changer, our officials work much more closely with government officials, because politicians have not said you can't speak to them. So as an example, you know, DFT officials, Treasury officials, MHCLG officials have probably worked closely with our officials over the last year than all the previous 8 years put together, because politicians aren't blocking them from doing so.
That's helpful to know. Thanks for the clarity. After COP, you said that we have no time to act on climate change. And you also talked about we need to act now, ultimately. In your manifesto, you talk about retrofitting being one of the most important things to tackle the climate crisis. But we know this government is delaying the Warmer Homes Plan. The whole retrofit sector is saying this is problematic in terms of jobs, in terms of security, and having a long-term plan. How much trust do you have in the government in this Warmer Homes Plan to get homes retrofitted for London?
So just thanks for the question. So I appreciate the context of the fiscal constraints the government has. Notwithstanding that, I was really pleased that an additional £1.5 billion was announced recently in terms of the Warmer Homes plan. We've already been allocated last year almost £280 million towards this initiative. This is the big game changer in terms of energy efficiency, retrofitting homes. And so we are lobbying the government for acceleration. There'll be a further tranche of money announced, we think, next year in terms of an integrated settlement for this scheme. It can't come soon enough because we've got to get going now. He's previously raised the important issue of skills. Yeah. If I could say to a young person or an older person thinking of retraining, look, the government's announced this sum of money. There's jobs here for the next 10 years. That'll give you confidence to retrain. That's why I'm impatient for further announcement. But this piece of initial news is good news.
And you're making that impatience case to the government?
Yeah, they've set aside a sort of £3.5 billion for a number of years. We want to be able to bid for that now to get certainty for the next few years, so we can then give certainty to people to retrain developers and councils as well. By the way, just London Council deserve huge credit. They've worked with us to set aside a pot of money to make sure council homes can be made more energy efficient sooner rather than later.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Thanks, Chair.
Bless you. Thank you.
We now move on the next.
Assembly Member Russell.
Sorry, apologies. Yes, please.
Thank you. When I asked in October about skilled worker visa changes and TfL workers, you said, at the very least, we're asking government for transitional protections because that will help constituents. Avi, who is here again in the chamber today, tells me that the support offered so far is smooth offboarding process and CV building. Doesn't sound like transitional protection. Can you update Avi and his TfL colleagues where you've got to on transitional protection with government?
Can I just say hello also to Avi, and thank you for your hard work for TfL. So can I, after this meeting, Chair, let the member know the response? I know the Deputy Mayor for Transport, Seb Dance, wrote to the relevant minister. I've just lost track of I'm sure there was a response, what the response was. I'll share that response with the member separately. I'll make sure that TfL are doing what they can to support the constituent.
Thank you. I mean, I think I'm completely out of time. So, but I think we need more from government. It's a very, very cruel visa change, and that really needs changing and challenging. And I hope that you can do more to challenge it.
And I should add, through personal experience, that there is some movement within the TfL family on those issues, and I think that's much welcomed from where we've had movement. But there's still more that can be done about the processes, the internal processes.
If you'll indulge me, I think the TfL is not the issue. The issue is the government transition stuff, which I'll follow up with. I'll follow them. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going back on the clock. It's me. It's tackling domestic abuse.
Thank you, Chair. Can I also thank you for this question, particularly this time of year for obvious reasons. Violence against women and girls, VOG, is a national epidemic, and reducing high levels of abuse and the number of victims is one of my top priorities, as it should be for everyone. And I welcome the government's announcement today of policies to reduce by half violence against women and girls by the end of this decade. There is no doubt that tackling VOG is a serious challenge and requires a public health approach to work together to address its root causes. That's why I'll continue to work in partnership to challenge the culture of misogyny that exists in our society, and that includes doing more to understand and address the concerning rise in harmful content and influences online. From City Hall, I've overseen investment of over £233 million to help tackle VOG by preventing it from happening in the first place, by funding work to support victims and survivors, and by intervening with perpetrators to hold them to account. The Met have set out their own commitments to tackling VOG through their VOG action plan, which they've been delivering on since 2023. They've allocated additional officers and staff to public protection roles and are directly targeting perpetrators through their VOG 100 approach. Operations Ateria The national operation to improve rape investigations is a great example of where London has been influential in tackling VAUG. The Met were a pathfinder force, and MOPAC hosted the research programme, with the programme now being adopted nationally. In London, we're seeing positive results from this new approach to investigations. However, I'm aware more needs to be done, and that's why I'll shortly be publishing a refreshed VAUG strategy that builds on the work already delivered and sets out my priorities for the next 3 years.
Thank you for the answer that you've given. Your scheme, which I think you've actively promoted, but within the MPS on GPS tagging domestic abusers, has led to a 45% reduction in reoffending and 63% reduction in violent offences amongst tagged offenders. So how will we now ensure that we're going to roll this out much, sort of scale it up and roll it out across London to deliver even better results?
Chair, thanks for putting on record those excellent stats. Every stat is a woman who's probably not going to be a victim of domestic abuse, domestic violence. That otherwise wouldn't be the case. Children won't be traumatised and so forth. So it's qualitative difference to the lives of women in London. So we did the pilot over 2 years, and the good news is the previous government recognised the success of the pilot, and to give credit where it's due, the previous government's MOJ agreed to roll this out, and the new government's taken that on board and scaled it up. And this is an example of actually policies that can continue over a government changing that are good policies because they make sense. So now all domestic abuse perpetrators who are released in London are eligible for this. He'll be aware the Commissioner last week raised his concerns, though, about the theory and the policy not being the same as the practice. And I support the Commissioner in raising his concerns about not everyone who should have a GPS tag is having it put on. When there's a breach, is a follow-up as good as it should be, and the burden it's putting on the police as well. And so we've raised those points with the Commissioner's raised those points, which I fully support. So we are trying to make sure those are addressed as well.
And you've rightly alluded to the problem about the seasonal nature of some of the abuse that takes place in leading up to Christmas and the pressures on those victims who feel they've got no one to go to. So what can we do in terms of providing additional support or information of where people may seek further help and support from others if they're facing domestic violence?
Chair, can I say, in advance of Mayor's question time, because I knew the question from Senator Moema and your question, I knew what the questions were going to be, I just checked what we're doing over this Christmas period. And so the first thing is, on the GLA website are the numbers of the National Domestic Abuse Helpline, the Pan-London Domestic Abuse Service, the London Survivors Gateway for those experiencing sexual violence, the London Stalking Support details for those experiencing stalking, and also support for those experiencing harmful practices. So, I'd encourage you to signpost anybody you know to the GLA website. It's a one-stop, all these 5 phone numbers. Secondly, we're reminding all nighttime venues about the provisions in the Women's Night Safety Charter. And just again to remind colleagues, if they know anybody who is going out about the night, remind them of the provision to ask for Angela if you're worried about a man causing you problems inside a venue. By the way, the police are also trained in relation to ask for Angela. So if you are the victim of domestic abuse and you are with your partner and can't ask for help, you can use a way of asking for Angela. And there are other advice out there from excellent victims and survivors group. And just to echo your point, which I've tried to make, is this time of year in particular, because, combination of drink and men being at home more and so forth, there is an increase in domestic abuse and domestic violence. And, whatever we can do to raise awareness and to minimise that, I think, is a good thing.
Well, I hope we could all play a part in that, in following some of that information, advice that can be given out, because it will help at least some people who see it. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Moving on to the next question is in the name of Assembly Member Cooper, and it's sustainable timbering construction.
Can I thank the member for her question? I'm proud of our track record in delivering the housing London needs, but we know that due to a perfect storm of factors right now, the country, including London, needs to build more new homes. It's therefore right to consider the role that timber and other sustainable materials can play in helping to deliver the homes that London needs, but clearly we must do this while ensuring the safety of Londoners. 8.5 years ago, we witnessed a horrific fire in our city at Grenfell, and the awful incident showed that what happens when combustible materials are used in the external walls of our homes. It was right that the government then banned combustible materials, which includes timber, in the external walls of buildings over 18 metres and restricts their use over 11 metres. In London, we went further, and my social and affordable homes programme extends this to buildings of all heights, which is the right approach to keep Londoners safe. We've seen numerous low and medium-rise fires since Grenfell, and there remains outstanding gaps in national regulations such as the testing and certification regime, which does not sufficiently control for the risk of unsafe materials being used on external walls. However, these requirements do not prohibit the use of timber in the internal structures of homes, so long as they are not present in the external wall. The funding guidance for my 2636 Social and Affordable Homes programme makes this clear. That's because I recognise the sustainability benefits of construction products like timber. The 2021 London Plan introduced a requirement to report on whole life cycle carbon for the first time. For the next London Plan, we're looking into various options for developing this policy further to reduce embodied carbon and encourage more sustainable choices for new development. The Government Timber in Construction Roadmap 2025 sets out some priority areas of focus, and one of these is investigating fire safety and durability of mass timber. I'll continue to work with the Government to monitor progress in this area and ensure the goals of building the safe, sustainable homes London needs can be best met.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I think it was very welcome to see that DEFRA document coming out in March and talking about doing the additional testing that I think would help in this area. I think timber is misunderstood in terms of the structural use of timber. I think we're all agreed that we need to think very carefully about the cladding that we put on the outside of buildings. You didn't mention the issue of additional speed that we get from using structural timber in dwellings. You'll recall our previous colleague Nikki Gavron did a whole rapporteurship on modern methods of construction and off-site construction, and we have seen people setting up factories and then closing them. So having that kind of supply chain would really help with that, and would also help DEFRA where it's looking to do things with forests here, getting rid of air miles, if you like, associated with imports. And I think it could create something of a perfect improvement.
I think she's absolutely right to remind me of the other advantages of timber. There are two big advantages that I forgot to mention, and I'm grateful for her giving me a chance to do so. One is speed, bearing in mind we want to be building 88,000 homes a year. The Secretary of State for MHCLG was recently on a site visit looking at the scheme, and she's right to remind us of the benefits of that. Secondly is diversity in the workforce, because not all the homes in the future will be old-fashioned, bricks, plastering, the model we've had for a long time. A lot of them will be. And this can diversify the workforce as well in terms of the sort of people that can be doing timber construction versus the old traditional construction, and both are huge advantages as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, the use of the Adult Skills Fund and whether we're able to do something to start to get people with those additional skills to ensure that we can take advantage of this low-carbon, sustainable, fast construction methodology?
Again, I'm really pleased she's raised this issue, because one of the things that Howard Dorber, the Deputy Mayor for Business, has tried to make us do is to, when it comes to further education, involve employers, businesses much more. One of the things that we are going to do as part of the inclusive talent strategies is, yes, we're going to invest £147 million in relation to the inclusive talent strategy, but set up talent boards led by the industry. And one of the talent boards is construction and built environment, and she's spot on in terms of making sure we have the right expertise on the talent board to make sure, it goes to a point we've discussed in the past, Senator Polanski and I, to make sure that we're pivoting the training for jobs that are future-proof, but also that we need for the reasons you've highlighted on many occasions at Mayor's Question Time. So I'm confident that the expertise of the Construction and Built Environment Talent Board will include the issues he's raised in relation to not just timber, but other issues to do with an emerging construction world.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing the new London Plan and those talent boards developing those new policies. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chair.
We're now moving to Assembly Member Desai, keeping the City of London and Canary Wharf competitive.
Can I thank the member for his question? London is home to over 90,000 diverse financial and professional services companies and remains the top global financial centre for the 5th year running, according to the 2025 City of London benchmarking analysis. The finance and professional services industry is a cornerstone of our city's economic growth. I'm working closely with the government, the City of London Corporation, the Canary Wharf Group and London's financial services to ensure London maintains our status as a world-leading financial centre. Fortunately, unlike the previous government, this government recognises London's critical role in driving national growth. That's why the government's new Office for Investment Financial Services has been located in the heart of the City of London, the single front door for international financial services wishing to set up or expand in the UK. The good news is the city itself is thriving with over 8.5 million square feet of office space under construction or being retrofitted, which will create space for up to 85,000 new workers in the city. Global financial institutions also continue to show their confidence in Canary Wharf. In the last month, JP Morgan Chase has announced a new 3 million square foot landmark tower there. This will be one of Europe's largest office developments, accommodating 12,000 employees. And in the last month, Visa confirmed its commitment to London by relocating its European headquarters to Canary Wharf, signing a long-term lease for 300,000 square feet of office space.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, on the 1st of December, the Lady Mayor of London, Dame Susan Langley, at a banquet which I attended, made a call to unsquare the square mile to make the city more open, innovative and accessible for all. Her message was clear. The Square Mile is not just a place to do business, but a vibrant community shaping the UK's future on the world stage. In light of her call, my specific question to you, Mr. Mayor, is how are you working with the industry, the financial service industry, to ensure opportunities are available for all Londoners from all communities to access jobs and training opportunities?
Can I thank them for his question? Can I just put on record my admiration of, in the first few weeks, the drumbeat of that sort of message from the new Lady Mayor, in terms of it being less intimidating, in less of the City of London being more welcoming, and using her own personal story as an example of somebody from a humble background can get the position she's done so. So what we're doing to make sure we address the issue he's raised is the London Growth Plan is targeting growth sectors, but also twinned with the inclusive talent strategy, making sure all Londoners can benefit from the jobs being created in our great city. I mentioned in answer to Leonie Cooper, the talent boards. We're going to make sure there are talent boards in all the key sectors, the frontier sectors, and make sure Londoners from all parts of our city can benefit from the jobs being created, many of them in sectors that are big in the City of London.
Thank you, Mr. Just to add that James Susan Langley was actually born in my constituency. She was born in Bow. But I think the point you make about, and which was in my question, that we have to make sure that all these opportunities are available to all Londoners, because we've seen in the past how the wrong people can exploit divisions.
Yeah, spot on. We've got to make sure that this sense of unfairness is addressed. Nobody wants to live next to a beautiful building with beautiful jobs and can't access those jobs. Just to reassure you, when I met the top team from JP Morgan Chase, they really get our values. They wanted to make sure that people in the community in and around Canary Wharf can benefit from the jobs being created. And they're already, many of our top firms in the Square Mile do work incredibly hard to make sure that Londoners from all sorts of backgrounds can access the jobs they're creating. And I don't just mean the porters and the cleaners and the office juniors, but jobs going up the spectrum.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, my other question is, how will the government trade deals with India, the US, the EU, and the potential trade deal with the Gulf benefit London's financial services sector and our capital's economy more broadly?
Well, I've got to make this as an introductory comment to address a point made before. It is really important we do these trade deals, but they still aren't the same benefits as being a member of the European Union. Okay? So what the government is trying to do is make the best of a bad hand. Now, the previous government failed to do any trade deals of any significance. What this government's done in just 15 months, a trade deal with the USA, a trade deal with India, a trade deal with the European Union, a trade deal with South Korea, and working incredibly hard with a trade deal with the Gulf states. We're a trading nation. We're an island that has thrived because of our trade, and we've got to make sure we do good trade deals with these countries. And in that spirit, I welcome the announcement of the Erasmus deal, a youth mobility scheme, with our friends in the European Union. It's really important.
Just Mr. Mayor, very quickly, at a dinner early in the week, the Prime Minister in the Guildhall made the call, and his exact words were, It's talking about competitiveness, business growth. Today, internationalism is patriotism.
Couldn't agree more.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
The next question is in the name of Assembly Member Bakari, and it's concerning the gig economy workers.
Can I thank the member for her question? Economic fairness is at the heart of my mayoralty, and the London Growth Plan, developed with London councils, commits to delivering a fairer and more inclusive economy. Whilst I don't have regulatory powers to directly tackle the exploitation of London's workers, I want all workers, including those in the gig economy, to benefit from the fair pay and good work that I've championed. My Good Work Standard sets out the benchmark for excellent employment practices, and more than 330,000 Londoners are now employed by the Good Work Standard accredited employers. Workers can also directly access information about employment rights through my Employment Rights Hub, which is updated as requirements change. I've also been working with the Living Wage Foundation to ensure Londoners are fairly compensated for the work they do. Since I was elected, the London Living Wage has increased by 57%, and there has been a six-fold increase in employers guaranteeing a wage that reflects the true cost of living in London. That means more than 4,300 London Living Wage employers and 150,000 Londoners subsequently benefited from a further pay rise. Still, there's no doubt that too many Londoners are excluded from contributing to and benefiting from growth and suffer exploitation. Nationally, we've seen considerable growth in gig economy jobs, especially in our cities. While some workers enjoy the flexibility of these roles, I'm aware that others experience low pay, poor working conditions and exploitation. The Employment Rights Bill will provide significant improvements for Londoners, including those working in the gig economy, and this week this passed into law and now heads for royal assent. This includes new protections from unfair dismissal and harassment, the right to request regular working patterns, and a ban on the exploitative zero-hours contracts prevalent in the gig economy. It will also introduce new protections for trade union members in workplaces. There remains complexity regarding employment status in the gig economy, so I call on all companies who engage people in work to meet the new requirements and expectations of the Employment Rights Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to talk about delivery riders because they're going to be really busy this Christmas, and I'd love to follow some excellent examples that are happening to improve rights, safety and welfare of London's delivery riders. Manchester's Mayor Andy Burnham has brought everyone together to have a new charter for delivery riders. Would you be like Andy and follow his example? Or the mayor in New York has a Charge Safe and Ride Safe campaign where they are battery swapping cabinets and a safe public charging infrastructure. Will you be like Mayor Adams at not Mandami yet and follow their examples for here in London?
Where Andy leads, I follow. So I'm more than happy to look at Andy's plans in Manchester and Eric's plans in New York. I'm not sure what Zoran's plans are yet. More than happy to look at those.
And we've got some fantastic leadership here in Newham with fire prevention from delivery rider community, the Newham Community Project, who are here today. They've written a fantastic report with the support of Newham Council and the London Fire Brigade. They'd love you to take this report. I've got copies here for everybody and speak to the riders themselves. Will you take a copy yourself, Mr. Mayor, and consider the community-led model that could be replicated across London?
I mean, I love this part of London so much, I moved City Hall here. So I'm more than happy to look at what Newham are doing in case. And by the way, Unmesh Desire regularly reminds me that the centre's moving east. So more than happy to look at what Newham are doing as well.
Brilliant. This will be your Christmas present, Mr. Mayor. And in the I want to say that I'm not one of those woke Muslims, but Mr. Mayor, from my family to yours, season's greetings, and I hope to see you on Low Morden Lane, the most Christmassy street in London, to raise funds for St Raphael's Hospice.
I do.
Have I got away with it?
Sorry, I was just about to say
Have
something.
I got away with it?
No, I'm not going to be a Grinch, but you're not allowed to do that in the chamber during these meetings.
But it's Christmas!
Okay. Or not. Bar humbug.
Chair, I think it would be quite wonderful if a Muslim member of the Assembly was thrown out of the chamber for wearing a celebratory Christmas hat.
We're not going to go that far. We've been very, very well behaved for us so far. Let's go back on the clock for me. There's a question by myself on the impact of government changes to jury trials.
Can I thank the Chair for his question? This government inherited a broken criminal justice system suffering from years of underinvestment. This left overcrowded prisons, an underfunded probation service and courts burdened with lengthy backlogs that delay justice for victims. These reforms and the wider measures within the sentencing bill aim to restore an effective criminal justice system. There are over 18,000 outstanding cases in London's Crown Courts, with some being listed in 2030. Justice delayed is justice denied, and these egregious delays have a devastating impact on victims. MOPAC research on victim attrition shows 40% of victims withdraw from the justice process prior to a charging decision, leaving them without justice and criminals unpunished. These backlogs have also leave defendants in limbo, denying them access to vital rehabilitative services or the chance to move on with their lives. It also means increasing amounts of Met Police time being spent enforcing bail conditions and being diverted from other policing priorities. The backlog is also fueling the prison crisis, with the remand population now at its highest level for 50 years. The London Criminal Justice Board continues to lead innovative partnership work to reduce the backlog through the London Crime Court Performance and Delivery Board. However, there remains a clear need for fundamental changes to relieve pressure on the court system and improve outcomes for victims.
And of course, we're right to focus on the impact on victims, but also we talked earlier on, I think Assembly Member Lord Bailey talked about morale of police officers. There can't be something more damaging in terms of working hard to bring people for justice, to see it then delayed in the way that you've described it. I was just wondering, so could you tell us the role of MOPAC? Is there regular dialogue with the Justice Department for London to talk about what that impact is on the MPS and working together to try and solve some of these issues, given the government's reforms?
No, I'm really pleased you raised the issue of the joint work between us and the government on this really serious issue. Just to follow through his example, by the way, about police morale. So, I'm hearing stories about the police, because of diligent investigation work, making arrests, because of great partnership with the CPS, bringing about charges, working with the victims, and then being told a trial is probably going to be listed in 3 years' time. Part for a second how demoralised the officer feels. Think of the community, knowing that person won't be brought to justice for a while, and think of the victim. That's why it's incredibly important to accelerate justice in a sensible, proportionate way. We're really lucky in the sense that London's Independent Victims Commissioner is now the country's Victims Commissioner. And so she will be in the heart of the Ministry of Justice and the government, explaining some of the consequences of the listing issues, the consequences on victim attrition, and the challenges there are. And it's really important that this is a cross-government approach. We need the Home Office, the Ministry of Justice, but also other parts of the government functioning properly, whether it's the Department for Health, whether it's other departments, MHCLG, to understand the consequences of this justice system being at the moment on the cusp of breaking down.
The magistrates' courts is all part of the reforms, and they're going to be having more powers in terms of giving longer sentences. But also we've heard about magistrates, there's not enough of them, and how do we recruit them? Is this just a job for the magistrate service, or is this one where our civic voice should be heard about the recruitments of new magistrates and to make sure they come from all parts of our community, not just from a small band?
Well, he'll be aware. I mean, there are basically two types of magistrates. There's the lawyer magistrate, and then there's the lay magistrate. Historically, lay magistrates have tended to be from a certain background because very few of us have the time and can afford to sit as a magistrate. And so, yes, of course, I encourage ordinary Londoners, if they've got the aptitude and the experience and the skills, to be magistrates. But it's difficult, right? If you've got a family to feed, put a roof over your head, to give up your time for free. So it's challenging. And so, yes, of course, I'd encourage Londoners to be a good citizen and offer public service where it's possible and volunteer. And lay magistrate's a great vocation. It's a great thing to do. You tend to see people who are retired or retired early or can afford to give it their time for free. I'd like it to be more diverse, because particularly if they'll be seeing more cases. One of the reasons why I have huge confidence in the jury system is it's trial by one's peers. They're not case hardened. They've got common sense. They've got street savvy. We want our magistrates, particularly lay magistrates, to also have those things.
it just seems in civic life we need more reservists for our armed forces, we need more specials for our police service, we need more youth leaders coming forward for our uniformed cadets, but also in other voluntary services, and we need more volunteers. Should we not add the magistrates to it and add our voice and think then, what can we do in the remaining part of this administrator about highlighting those opportunities that exist? And again, I think you mentioned earlier on signposting people to actually consider these opportunities that may arise.
Chair, as you're speaking, Chair gave me two ideas, and so this is me speaking on the hoof.
I'm out of time, and you might wish to write to us. I can't.
I bet my staff are relieved. I didn't advertise my ideas before they'd had a chance to check them. That's good.
All right. Well, thank you. But maybe you could write to us and with some thinking about it. OK, let's go back to the main questions. So, Assembly Member Prince, TfL safety.
So I thank the member for his question. Everyone deserves to feel and be safe when travelling around London, be that on the roads, on the tube, on London's buses, or in walking and cycling. Since launching my Vision Zero action plan in 2018, TfL, in collaboration with London boroughs and the Met Police, have delivered real, tangible progress to make London's streets safer. This includes delivering 20-mile-per-hour schemes, which have reduced the number of people killed or seriously injured on borough roads by 34%, to building safer junctions and ensuring the highest vision standards for HGVs. In 2023, there was a 62% reduction in the number of fatal collisions involving an HGV compared to the 2017-2019 baseline, as well as reductions in serious injuries. TfL's bus safety standards led to a 34% reduction in the number of people killed or seriously injured in collisions with a bus from the 2010-2014 baseline. On rail modes, TfL is, for example, working to reduce the risk of someone being injured at the gap between the train and platform, trialling new technologies alongside engineering interventions. TfL also works to protect customers and colleagues from crime and antisocial behaviour by funding and working in partnership with the Met Police and the British Transport Police. The policing presence is now complemented by over 500 of TfL's own enforcement officers who work across the tube, rail and bus networks. The transport network is also covered by extensive CCTV, and TfL's directly employed customer-facing staff also wear body-worn cameras for everyone's safety. And the good news is the risk of being a victim or of witnessing a crime in London remains low, with 13.5 crimes reported for every million passenger journeys made. Robbery is down, hate crime is down compared to last year as well. TfL also partners with the police, boroughs, charities and community groups to protect vulnerable customers and reduce harm across its service. Staff receive specialist training to intervene confidently and compassionately when supporting individuals in mental health crisis or at the risk of suicide. I want to ensure Londoners that safety remains at the heart of everything we do.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Merry Christmas to you and your family, and thank you for a wonderful service the other night at the church. Mr. Mayor, I'm sure you're aware that, regrettably and unfortunately, in October there was a casualty on the track at Dagenham Heathway Station. This station is what is known as an island station, so there is no barrier between our TfL railway line and the C2C, which is the fast lane train that goes through that station at around about 70 miles an hour. There are other stations as well up near Elm Park and Upminster Bridge, which are, two of which are in my constituency. So this leaves the station very unsafe because there's no barrier. Someone can just walk off the platform on the underground and then just walk straight in front of a train, as was unfortunately the case in October. Can you, Mr. Mayor, lobby TfL and, more importantly, Network Rail to see if there's some kind of barrier that can be installed?
Chair, can I put on record my thanks to the member who let my staff know in advance about this horrible case and they'd bring it to my attention. I'll make 2 points. One is the advice we have is not to talk about specific places to do with suicide because it can exacerbate a problem and it can encourage copycat suicide. The second point is I've taken on board the points you've made to my staff and I'm thankful. And we're working on this issue and I'm happy for my team to speak to him privately about the progress we're going to make because he raises a really important issue. I've seen as the MP for Tooting how things can be done to minimise the chance of suicide. And so let me take away his idea, which is a very sensible one, what we can do.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Merry Christmas.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the questions. Can I thank you, Mr Mayor, for the answers, and can I wish you, on behalf of the Assembly, a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I know some of us were going to be seeing each other on different issues, but
Okay, that's the end of that. I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who subscribed, liked, and commented. Been a brilliant stream for me. Thank you very much. Very positive. Also, want to just point out in the description there's a link to the digital ID debate that the Parliament Live YouTube channel hid for about a week. That is up and going. Also, the Online Safety Act. There's a debate there as well on my past videos. I can't remember whether it's a video or a live stream, I'm afraid, on that one. But just want to say thank you very much, everyone who's contributed towards the stream in the chat. We've had some real good comments in the chat there, and hopefully see you all again. And welcome to all the new subscribers. It's been a bit of a long one, this, but thank you very much. And we will all catch up with you soon. And yeah, I was just astounded that we've actually been recommended via YouTube from a Talk TV, a couple of Talk TV videos. So that's brilliant. So yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. We need to share this out. You know, everyone needs to see the truth. Right. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care. Have a great rest of the day. Looking forward to the weekend. I know the weather's crap, but I might do a live stream out in the rain, but you never know. Right. Thank you all. Catch you all soon.